This is Dave Bennett here with the group from Bottom Dead Center. Going to talk monster trucks for a really long time. So sit down, sit back, get ready, let's go.
Prepare yourself. This is the Bottom Dead Center Show, presented by OSMT.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Bottom Dead Center Show here on the Old School Monster Trucks YouTube channel. I am Kyle Doyle, your creator and host, joined tonight by my ever-present co-host, Frank Krimmel. Matt Looker, not with us tonight, but will be joining us soon on our next episode. But tonight, Frank, we've got our hands full anyways, and in fact, I would say, I'm drinking Liquid Death, but I think tonight's show topic almost calls for an ice-cold Coors, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
Yeah, so as you've no doubt seen from the title to our show and all the artwork, tonight's special guest in the second half of the show, of course, is none other than one of the great voices of monster truck announcing from the old school days. Certainly, I would call him the premier announcer from USA Motorsports, which is really saying something because USA always had amazing announcers. But it is the announcer, Mr. Dave R. Bennett out of Oklahoma, the man, the myth, the legend, the voice, the inspiration behind our Coors Extra Gold Motor Spectacular merchandise. Frank, we'll get into talking about, Dave and previewing this interview and, of course, the Monster Mania VHS tape that we all idolize. But before we get to that, we were catching up a little before we started recording. Kind of fill us in, since we last saw you. Where have you been? What have you been up to? And it looks like you might have spent a day in the shop today, too, I'm thinking.
For sure. We just got back from Charlottesville, Virginia. We did Corpus Christi the last weekend, and man, we've been running all days, and and not complaining at all. Everything's going good. Trucks are running amazing. I mean, the Monster Trucks Limited team is doing well. DJ Bolts and I have been DJ Bolts has been carrying the heavyweight as far as picking up overall championships and stuff, but I snuck in there and got one. So everything's going good. The trucks are running good. Our team, James Calhoun, DJ Bolts, myself, we're having a blast. The Hot Wheels crew is a great group. Eric Steinberg, Kelly Williams driving Rhino Mike, and the whole group. Those guys are just outstanding. Al Sizemore, Evan Wheeler, Bobby, of course. I mean, just a great group. It's a great situation to be in. At this point in Monster Truck life, I didn't expect to be around something like this, and to do this every weekend with this group of people is pretty outstanding. So we're having a blast. We got a week off coming up for Easter, and then we head up to Tallahassee, Florida, and keep on rolling. So it's pretty nonstop, but it's good to be around this group of people.
That's awesome. I'm going to do a clap here to break real quick. Your audio was doing crazy stuff while you were talking. You'd be really loud and really quiet. It's Bottom Dead Center. If we don't have fucking technical problems, it wouldn't be a Bottom Dead Center. So if you had audio displeasure while Frank was talking, it's not Frank's fault. It's probably on my end. And if you didn't have audio displeasure, that's okay. We did. And like we just got done saying, it wouldn't be a BDC episode if we didn't break shit. So now that we've rolled over in introductions, Frank, let's carry on with the show.
Absolutely.
So the Hot Wheels Tour weekend off for Easter, most of American motorsport kind of taking a break around Easter weekend, or at least, not racing on Sunday. But I want to get your opinions if you've gotten to see any of the video or hear second or third hand, kind of how that open air show in California went for the West Coast Hot Wheels crew. I want to shout out to Caleb Janicic, by the way, rocking the old school Bigfoot. I mean, Bigfoot 15 is firmly planted in old school monster trucks territory. I can tell you from driving it a handful of times myself, and then watching Caleb go out there and drive it. It's still old number 15, but shout out to Caleb. He was throwing her up in the air a few times, got a couple slap wheelies, and there was, Ranger Joe was out there running, which of course he certainly deserves an OSMT label. But Frank, give me your thoughts. Did you get to see any of kind of how the show went out there?
I saw some video and heard some feedback, and I think it's great what Outlaws trying to do is trying to open things up and do some different venues. I think it's great. And I think as we work towards Boise, which I think is going to be the culmination of Outlaws moving forward, I think it's going to be great. Who knows what we're going to see out there? It's going to be great to see the two tours together and or bigger than we've been on all year. I think it's going to be great. It's going to bring me back some of my old school kind of circa 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12 kind of things. And, for me, it's going to, you get out there with the lights on and a big floor. You might see some old Frank Grimmelness out there at some point. I'm looking forward to it, because I know our trucks, my truck Mega Rex and the other truck Bone Shaker, it's Stone Crusher and Hook. Let's be honest, that's what they are. Those trucks are built for stadiums. So for us to get out there and get some steam under our feet and get rolling, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I know the trucks are ready for it and can do it. And, I think there's going to be some big stuff out of Bone Shaker and Mega Rex for sure.
So not trying to pull the cover off too quickly, because I'm sure there's some little details you maybe have heard are going to happen in Boise that we don't know about yet. But will your two trucks be maintaining their identities? I assume some identities will be getting switched around at that show, just so there's not two Mega Rexes and stuff running, right?
Well, as far as I know, we're Mega Rex and Bone Shaker there. I don't know what the plan is, but I know our trucks will be Mega Rex and Bone Shaker in Boise.
Nice. Well, that's very cool. I look forward to seeing how all that comes together. I mean, I think they've kind of perfected what you guys do at the arena level. So adapting that to the outdoor realm without trying to go too far with it straight away and not be something that it's not supposed to be. And then perhaps changing, show flow or expectations or, ROI for the teams or things like that is something they're probably being pretty careful with. But I mean, they built some nice jumps and stuff out there. I mean, it wasn't like they were out there, running over 2 foot high Beckley rollers and stuff like that. I mean, they had some good elevated car stacks and some stuff like that. So I think it'll be cool. I was, and I'm not speaking like I know everything that Caleb does when he's driving or anything like that, but I did see, a couple ding dongs on the internet, like throwing shade, about how the guys are running this or running that. And I think at the end of the day, they're all running the way they're told to run, which is drive accordingly for the kind of show that Hot Wheels is bringing there. But I will tell you also that if you let's say that show was intended to be, a tier A level performance, all out racing, freestyle type thing, it's tough if you've been driving at 6/10, 7/10 as needed, as required, as is safe at a number of gigs, whether it's car crushes or arena shows or whatever the case might be. And then all of a sudden you get thrown to the wolves and you got to find 10/10 every pass right away. Especially for younger guys that are still cutting a few teeth out there. And again, I'm not saying anything negative about Caleb's driving. There's nothing negative to say. What I am saying is, iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel. And like when you were, racing Monster Jam stadiums every freaking weekend on television, you were the sharpest version of yourself as a driver that you could be, because you were in that battle constantly, where if you raced every 4 to 5 weeks and we're doing displays or just car crashes in between, or even just arena level shows, that would take a little of the edge off and maybe hand a little advantage to another guy if he had maybe been racing in stadiums nonstop.
No, I agree. The difference, I think, with myself, our truck is a part of the tour. For me, I don't think it would take much to get back into that, because I did it for so long. And I'm not trying to sound, Not no arrogance or whatsoever involved. Yeah, I get back out there and I know the trucks can do it. I know the truck I'm in, which is Hook and now Mega Rex. I know the truck can do it, and I've done it probably Hot Wheels did it all summer, and I know the truck handled big stuff. So I'm not worried about the truck at all. Myself driving wise, it might take a pass or two to get back in the swing, but once I get out there and start seeing those ramps and start seeing the way they're going to send us and walk around and check it out, pretty confident that we're going to run, and everybody else is going to run well too. You know, the Holmans and Bigfoot and those guys. I mean, we're going to be ready, and it's going to be good. And I'm really looking forward to getting back out there in a stadium setting, a big floor where you can really let the trucks do what they know to do, they can do. And not saying what we're doing is bad, because it is not. It is absolutely outstanding what we're doing week to week in the arenas. I mean, the joy we bring to kids' faces and the parents and the families that come through there, I wouldn't trade that for anything. To jump out into a stadium after doing that for a bunch of weeks is going to be refreshing. And I think it's going to add the next level how to do.
This just in. This is coming through the OSMT News Network wire right now in my other ear here, Frank. New headline: Frank Grimmel challenges Blake Granger to double international super throwdown stadium event and beer drinking competition. All our money's on Frank. We've got we're gonna write you in on that one. We got Frank on that one.
Well, I can't speak about Blake. I haven't been around him in a few years, so I don't know his status in either one of those competitions. But hey, I tell the guys all the time our Hot Wheels tour, they always tell me, hey man, go out there and drop a 2009 Frank Kremel run or whatever. I pick and choose my time, but I pick my battles, right? But
well, I can't help you as a driving coach, but if you need help, getting prepped for that beer drinking, you come out here to altitude. I will teach you how to drink the beer at the altitude, Frank. We're going to pump you up. Yeah.
That's something crazy too. That beat out in Boise, we hadn't been that far west in a long time, so that's going to be something to get used to. But we got that Holly EFI in our trucks with the help of Richard Midget, so I think we're going to be just fine.
Put the super tune on her. I like it. Make sure that battery's all the way at 12.5 volts or whatever. Like keep that baby cranked. Extra batteries for Boise. No doubt. Yep. Well, as we, I think talking about batteries is a good segue over here to the IndyCar realm, because of course, full season with hybrid electric systems, battery deployment on IndyCar this year. They had it some last year. It's full season this year. And I know you and I have both been trading, texts and reels and stuff back and forth all IndyCar season so far. And, the biggest takeaway I have so far this year, and I know what you think I'm going to say, but I changed my mind here last second. The biggest takeaway I have, and I was talking to Matt Stoltz about this yesterday during the NASCAR race, Fox's IndyCar coverage is blowing their NASCAR coverage out of the water. I mean, I think Will Buxton and Townsend Bell and Hinchcliffe, I could listen to those guys commentate stock car racing too. Just shift them from the IndyCar race right next to the NASCAR race. Just keep them in the booth, have them do it long distance. I don't care. Those guys, they are so sharp. They have good cadence, good flow. There's not a lot of downtime. They don't bicker and poke fun at each other. But they're still lighthearted. I don't know. I just think they're doing a really good job. And of course, Fox owning a stake in IndyCar now doesn't hurt things because they're more vested in the property. And of course, they have the entire championship on Fox, where NASCAR gets, I think there's 11,000 networks that get a slice of the NASCAR series, 3 series now, which is super annoying. So I give a lot of credit to Fox's IndyCar stuff. I think they're doing a great job. It's on par with, in many cases better than I think what F1 does with theirs. So I think that's kind of the big storyline as far as maybe, let's say, the 30,000 foot view business side. But you called it last year, Frank. You had a driver that was racing, in one of the smaller teams, let's say, that has a technical alliance with Team Penske. And of course, with Will Power leaving this year, that young driver moved up into the 12 car on the Penske team. And I think despite Joseph Newgarden winning Phoenix on a bit of I don't want to say a fluke, but the race did shake out in Newgarden's favor late. I think young David Malukas, who you have been let the record stand. Frank has been a champion of David Malukas as well before the move to Penske. But I'm thinking as a Malukas fan, Frank, you got to be pretty happy right now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just watching.
I mean, the only problem I've ran into this year is that all of our shows have been on Sundays, and I'm missing the majority of the telecast, right? But I still catch up on, like YouTube and all the highlight reels and all that stuff. And I keep up with the IndyCar app on my phone. So I'm watching by, real time as it's happening. And Malukas has been legit. And like we talked about before, but also too, Kyle Kirkwood still.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys who came through worked through the point feeder system to get to Andretti. And then now he's with Andretti, won multiple races, a consistent front runner, along with Malukas now, which he pretty much is. But like we said earlier, Santino Ferrucci they had a rough go first race, but as they've gone through the season here, he's gotten consistently faster. And his teammate Kyle Collette, still rookie guy, any next guy. But I'm telling you, there's something there. I think the Santino Ferrucci thing. I think all this is doing is building up towards Indy, because we know he's going to be fast in Indy. The point cars are always fast in Indy. So, the best thing about getting to April is that means we're just a month away from the month of May. So,
oh yeah,
that's a great thing. To me, that's one of the best times of the year. You start leading towards the Memorial Day weekend, Indy 500. There's no better time of the year than that.
I agree. Memorial Day weekend feels like Christmas weekend to motorsports fans like us.
Yeah.
We documented last year that Formula One was really screwing the pooch, not putting Monaco still on that weekend, which, we'll deal with that when it comes to us. But I will say the IndyCar season has had some, what would you say, like wild card races, just like the Cup season started off with kind of some wild card races. I mean, the Cup started off with essentially 2 super speedways and a road course, where, IndyCar started off with, the familiar streets of St. Pete, but then, immediately like moving on to Phoenix, to the short oval there, where they had not been, my gosh, was it the late 90s or early 2000s the last time, IndyCar visited Phoenix? And at that point, it had not been reconfigured into what it is now. So that was different for them. They had the Dallas race around the stadiums and stuff, which we talked about offline, actually ended up being, some people poo-poo stadium parking lot races, and I'm one of them if they're bad. But this one was good. This was no Las Vegas Caesars Palace Grand Prix from the 70s or 80s. Like, this was a kick-ass street course. It was bumpy. Cars are flying around everywhere. There was some really tough turns. I love the split pit lane stuff, like you and I talked about with the Detroit Grand Prix, how we love that. It makes it a very exciting pit road. So you've had some curveballs out there, and then you get to Barber this last weekend, and Barber is just a stalwart stop on the IndyCar schedule. And I think it really showed, if you're an Alex Palou fan, you're feeling better, right? Because Palou was in his most natural environment on a undulating road course and doing a great job. But we saw some speed from some other teams. Look at Ray Hall out there. He was fighting for a podium there at the end, until he unfortunately started getting, I think he did end up finishing on the podium, but he was at risk of getting mugged by David Malukas late in the race. So I think there's, still a lot of exciting racing to come from Indy. But to your point, Frank, I love the month of May, man. Like, it is so fun. The pageantry, the buildup. We talked last year when I was in Indianapolis in early May, unfortunately not during any activity at the track. But, like my good friend Sean, that kind of is my racing buddy here in Cheyenne, we went to St. Elmo's Steakhouse in downtown Indy. And, that's just part of the pageantry of Indy, is a stop there too. So this year I am recreating St. Elmo's Steakhouse at my house the Saturday of, it's 2 Saturdays before the 500. We didn't want to try and do it the same day as the 500, understandably, but it'll be the road course weekend, the Indy road course weekend. So I've got big fat porterhouses ordered from my good friend Kyle Harding at Harding Ranch here in Wyoming. We're going cream spinach. We're going red skin potatoes, shrimp cocktail with the spicy sauce. We're doing whiskey colas and old fashions. It's going to be on point. So we're at least going to try and get in the spirit of Indy, a little bit early again, because Man, I hope you don't have a show that weekend, Frank.
I do not.
Yes.
So
all right.
we got the Memorial Day weekend off, so and I'm so fired up. Can't even explain it to you.
Yes. I mean, a day off is good enough anyways for a monster truck guy to celebrate, but then when you get the 500, it's like, yeah, buddy. And I work Memorial Day, unfortunately, but I will tell you after years of practice, I am accustomed to going in absolutely gassed on Monday, and perhaps feeling a little shaggier than I normally would on a Monday because historically the day starts for me with Monaco, which in Rocky Mountain time is 6 a.m., and then right into Indy stuff, and then right into the Coke 600, which can run pretty long. So, whatever, man. It's a rite of passage and a privilege that we get to kick it on days like that. So, I wish you could be here with us for our steakhouse, but one of these days we'll get you out here and slice a big chunk of beef off for you.
For sure. And also, I can't wait to make my irresponsible IndyCar merch purchase.
Yes.
A week or two before the 500.
Totally.
I have to have all the current AJ Foyt gear, the number 14, number 4, try to represent everybody. But there's always that irresponsible merch purchase. And Cal, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, you want to talk about irresponsible purchases, dude? Like, so I mean, this path to financial irresponsibility that I've been on for the last I don't know 11 years now. So my Royals win the World Series in 2015. Irresponsible spending immediately follows, and then Logano wins his first title in 18. A minor amount of irresponsible spending occurs, nothing too crazy yet. But then the Chiefs go on their run of Super Bowls, and the Penske cars rip off 3 in a row championships in NASCAR, and it's just like, holy shit, man! Next thing you know, I've made like 3 house payments in total to Fanatics. You know, I'm like, damn it.
Floodgates are open. Yes.
Yeah, dude, seriously. But I mean, it's always so fun too because you know you want to buy. And I'll probably be ordering some 60th anniversary Penske stuff as well too, which I want to talk more about that in a minute. But if a car or a driver you loves wins a big race like the Indy 500 or the Coke 600, how do you not jump on there? Like, enjoy the moment. You know what I mean? We can't take this stuff with us. What's an extra $50 on the card or out of the bank if it gets you that hat that makes you tickle pink? And I mean, I can't turn this camera around my room, but whatever. My NASCAR diecast collection alone's up over 200 right now, and they're almost all race wins, and I don't even care, man. I'm just like, these things are like, well, I have as many diecasts as I have vinyl records almost. They're just a physical embodiment of something that kicks ass that I like. I can't help it. I want to have it, you know?
Oh, absolutely. No, I get it. I'm the same way. And just with my, just like with you with sports teams, the Tigers do something, the Lions do something. I am the first one on the train to buy the division championship, you know, the wild card win shirt. I do the same thing. So it's now if a Foyt car was to win the Indy 500, I don't even know if I'd be even not even I don't want to say I'd be unconsolable for days because it'd be so cool. Just like the Wood brothers, and I put the Foyt team in the same realm as the Wood brothers with NASCAR. If the Foyt team is able to pull off an Indy 500 win, I think it would be one of the biggest stories in open wheel racing in a long time, just because of the storied history of that team, and just like the Wood brothers when they got their hundreds, So I think the Foyt team will have a very interesting storyline and following going into the month of May for the 500 because they always have a shot whenever they go there, even with Kanan, Bourdais, and all the drivers they've had in the past. They've always had a shot. So I keep leaning towards that, and that will be, I think if that could happen, my most irresponsible merchandise purchase would probably be for that.
I'm not saying I wouldn't root for Ferrucci to win. I mean, obviously, I'm a homer to the Penske side of things, and excuse me, I've always appreciated Pato O'Ward driving for McLaren as well. But I think somebody like Ferrucci winning, like you said, would be the biggest story in open wheel racing of any kind, period. And any F1 homers can argue with me till they're blue in the face, but I still think that would be, I mean, to compare for people that are F1 fans or NASCAR fans and not IndyCar fans, truly it is like, the Wood brothers just like the Foyt team, were powerhouses back in the day. But as the industry's changed, racing's changed, alliances change. Interestingly enough, both of those teams are, satellites or affiliates of Penske now on both sides of their racing, or at least have alliances, I guess you would say, on the IndyCar side. So when a team not called Ganassi or a team not called Penske or a team not called Andretti wins any race, it's a big deal. But the 500, man, I mean, that is the Super Bowl for that series. It's the one race that if anybody watches an IndyCar race and only one a year, then it's probably going to be that one. I think if Ferrucci could pull something off, that would be just so stinking incredible. What a boon for the team and a boost for, the Foyt family. It would be, it waters the mouth a little bit to think about, such a prospect. So, and I mean, he's had some good runs, some good finishes, and certainly plenty good speed at Indy. So it'll be exciting. And I'm sure when we get closer, we'll do our little 500 preview like we did last time, which I absolutely loved. That was a blast. But if you'll pardon the pun-laden segue, I'm going to shift sequentially without using the clutch pedal over to NASCAR for a moment. And just recap briefly, our trip we made out to Las Vegas for the Pennzoil 400 not too long ago. Want to thank Morgan and everyone at Team Penske and Wood Brothers for their hospitality. The race, to my way of looking at it, kind of looked just like a snooze fest, honestly. It was a kind of a classic intermediate snooze fest where a couple cars had speed and everybody else was, just trying to hold some station for the day, I guess I would say. One natural caution, if I'm not mistaken, in the entire race that screwed the top 10 running position up, unfortunately, for the 2 and the 12. But I had a pretty unique opportunity. It was fairly warm that day. And my oldest daughter was kind of wanting to roam a little bit independently through the Neon Garage area in the infield. My wife and my youngest were pretty content to stay in the cool outdoor pavilion under the shade screens and the outdoor couches and the TVs and everything. So everybody kind of got to watch the race where they wanted from. Where did I watch from, you ask? Well, funny you should ask. I shall tell you. I was fortunate enough, again, thankfully, to sit on the number 2 car's pit box for not just the first stage like last year, but we actually got up. There was nobody with me, but I got to sit up there for the entire race, and hardly anybody else came and went from the pit box. So I was able to really soak up just the experience and immerse myself in how little you really see of the real race, right? I mean, you just see the cars fly by down the straightaway and then that's it until they come back around and do it again. And so you're constantly like, TV broadcast, in-car camera, telemetry, and you're sort of just making this little pattern. But just watching, Brian Wilson and the rest of the 2 crew work on making that car better through the day, the feedback that Austin Cindric was giving them. I think Cindric gets, poo-pooed sometimes unfairly for his actual driving ability and his recent performance, I think is showing that he's come a long way. But I was just impressed with the guy's maturity and, the crew's patience and resolve through the day, just, steadily putting their heads down and working. And you could see the relief, when all 4 cars get to go back on the trailer under their own power, so to speak, nothing on a wrecker, which is really good. I did have a really fun time talking to some of those guys on the grid before the race. And Morgan Kane that works for Team Penske. Of course, Morgan very well, and he's an extremely accomplished monster truck driver. And it was kind of funny, him and I jawing about monster trucks and stuff. And, some of the guys with the 2, just one of the things that I've noticed, like stock car drivers in particular, find funny about us monster truck types is we could wear out Hans tethers in a season. You know what I mean? And I was actually explaining to Len Wood, one of the Wood brothers, before the race when we were at their trailer talking to them. And we were talking about Morgan and monster trucks and things like that. And I said, just suppose your driver, say Josh Berry, has a perfect 36 race, season. Let's say he's not going to win every race or even a race, but let's say he makes it through the season without getting collected in a wreck. Theoretically, he hasn't used his Hans device. It was a safety measure that was preventative. In monster truck racing, even if you just want to go out and pop and drop on some crush cars at a Ford dealer, you're using your Hans device. So I said, for monster truck drivers, it's a it's a immediate prerequisite, just like your seatbelts, to be able to just do what we do, versus, you know, a traditional racing driver might not ever use their Hans device. And it's kind of funny how they see it as an emergency thing. And for us, it's just, you got to have it, man.
Oh yeah, we use it as like me every day, every show. Hook it up, pull the belts tight, give the old head
Yep.
yank to make sure it's not moving on the belts, and every time you jump something, that those those straps are doing something. Unlike the NASCAR guys who, you know, that have their stuff hooked up, and unless they hit a wall, God forbid, they're not using them. You
Yep.
know.
Yeah, and of course, you know even better than I, but we go out there and you look at a track before you go drive on it, and you're like, "Yep, going to be using them on that jump and that jump in particular tonight." You just know it. I mean, you see the size of some of the stuff that you raced on over, you know, at Monster Jam shows, and of course now the way tracks are built and stuff, the jump doesn't even really have to look that physically imposing, and you still know you're going to go moonshot off of it. But
Oh yeah.
on the topic of the Wood Brothers briefly, so it's over my shoulder right here. There it is. I'm not going to try and dig it down right now, but my wife was super cool several months ago to keep an eye out just randomly, like she does when she's hanging out with her friends, and they were at a thrift store or flea market or, you know, antique mall, something like that. And they found this old Wood Brothers book, like the story of the Wood Brothers. And it's from 73, 74, somewhere in there. The cover's all tattered to hell, but the book itself's actually in really, really nice shape. She probably didn't spend, you know, 25 cents on it. Not that that matters. It's the thought that counts. Like, way to have a good eye, lady. Like, you can't even hardly tell from looking at the cover what it's supposed to be. And she plucked it right out of the mess. So anyways, I get to looking through it and I was like, man, this is a really entertaining book. It's got amazing photos of, you know, the Yarborough days and the Pearson days and stuff like that. So I take it to the race with us, and I told her, I said, you know, I said, if Eddie or Len are there, I want to show them this book and just see if they remember it, see if they have a funny story about it, you know, try and get them to sign it or something like that. So we're talking to Len first, and I was like, you know, Mr. Wood, I was hoping you might take a look at this book and just tell me if you knew anything about it, or, you know, if you wouldn't mind, you know, autographing the inside or whatever. And he laughed when he looked at it. And he goes, my daddy said this book's the biggest piece of shit there was, or something along those lines. I might be paraphrasing slightly, but he goes, my daddy said this book was full of it, and he only made it through the first page reading it because he said it was so full of it. And I said, oh, no, so it's a bad book. He goes, no, I'm not meaning that. He's like, I'm just saying back then, you know, we were right there with Petty as the top two cars in NASCAR. We were a hot thing going. And so everybody was trying to get a piece of us or a piece of Petty to make $1 off of. So he said this book was completely unauthorized by the Wood Brothers. You know, Leonard and Glenn did not authorize that book. So he goes, and I can show you exactly how my daddy knew this was full of crap. So you open the book to the first page of text, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but the author is trying to weave this story of Glenn Wood driving home with the transporter, you know, because it was the 70s, driving the transporter home and stopping at some truck stop in the middle of the night to get some coffee, and remarking about whatever's wrong with the coffee. It's nothing the several spoonfuls of sugar can't fix. And he looked at me and goes, my daddy didn't put sugar in his coffee. And that's how he knew this book was full of it. And he just never read a page after that. And so I kind of got a laugh out of that. I was like, man, well, I mean, how often do you really get a chance to get it from the horse's mouth that, you know, this is the story of this book? So regardless, thankfully they both autographed it anyways, because I thought it was kind of a unique piece to have in my collection. But I thought everybody might get a little bit of kick of that, of just how sharp those guys are. And you know, they might be the second generation, you know, of the Wood Brothers family, Eddie and Len, but those guys came up as shop workers and crew guys and transporter drivers and later crew chiefs and car chiefs and sponsor getters. Like, those dudes have done it all for that team. And I mean, at periods of time when those cars were very dominant, those guys were in the trenches. So getting to see them again was certainly a privilege, and having them autograph that book. But I'll drop some pictures in here, and I'll have to send you some too, Frank. But yeah, so I have a completely unauthorized bullshit biography autographed by the Wood Brothers. How about that?
Perfect.
It's certainly a unique piece to the collection. That's for sure. But let's bump ahead now, if you're cool with it, and kind of get to our final topic of this first half of the show before we get into the second half. Now, Matt Looker not with us tonight, but as you'll see in our interview with Dave Bennett, so Matt and I pre-recorded this interview several weeks ago, actually, to try and line up the timing of everybody's schedules, knowing we're all going to keep getting busier as the year goes on. And of course, Mr. Bennett, and he explains it a little bit more in his interview, still a bit of a busy guy himself as well at times too. So in respect to that, we pre-recorded ahead of time. But Frank, we all talk about it in the group chat all the time, man. Like the Monster Mania VHS tape, if people haven't watched it on YouTube, or if they're not checking out the special version of it that we're going to try releasing on OSMT here in a week or two, they're missing out, man. It is a absolute gem.
It is, and I grew up watching that. The early versions. Like I want to say the first one that had the black, orange, red, and yellow King Crunch, the barefoot forest. That was it. And the intro to that video, I can hear it in my mind right now. The cosmic space kind of intro to it. And then, as you got into the next versions of it with the USA Motorsports, as far as the, monster, the bloopers and all that stuff, but you still hear Dave in there, and you cannot mistake his voice and his delivery. It's burned into my mind as a young monster truck fan.
Seared in. I know. You get the cheesy sort of like Star Wars-esque scroll to open it up, and the fade in of Ron West in Missouri, the Kansas City area band that soundtracks that VHS, which, by the way, you can find the best of Missouri on iTunes, and I assume on Spotify, certainly on YouTube. If you are not crushing cold cans of Coors or Coors Light with your friends in the garage watching Monster Mania, you ain't living right. You're as wrong as your mother-in-law. But and then of course the intros right away, and so kind of tipping everybody off here, we plan on doing our own version of Monster Mania as sort of a Mystery Science Theater 3000 type review coming up soon, because you need to watch the video just neutral on its own, and there's copies of it on YouTube. But we thought there at least must be 7 or 8 of you out there as twisted as Frank and Matt and I are that would like to hear us offer our thoughts live and as the show rolls on. That'll be coming later on the YouTube channel. But what's interesting is when the video fires up, and you know this, Frank, there's 2 announcer voices you hear on there, and one is very distinct, cutting, crisp, clear, really no accent to speak of, or at least certainly not compared to the deep Oklahoma brogue that we hear from our good man Dave Bennett. And the other voice you hear is actually Russ Klein, one of the founders of USA Motorsports, one of the original announcers. And Dave goes into a good bit of detail about Russ and his involvement with both the announcing and the business side of it. But what a great counterpoint for that whole VHS tape, Frank, that those 2 different announcing voices and styles present.
Oh, for sure. And I can see flashes of that video. I've watched a million times, and I think one of the great things that I remember about it, and this was before I even knew the guy, was seeing a very young Scott Stevens and that flipped out body King Crunch, which just cracked me up. And then the Outlaw 35, which didn't get a lot of TV play back in the day. I mean, it was here and there, but seeing Outlaw 35 and the S10 Barefoot, Red Shaper's S10 Barefoot, Little Barefoot. There's so much in that. Just the opening sequence that it's just great.
No, it's wonderful. And then, excuse me, a little congested today. The early King Crunch footage is really interesting to me, and we only really see, if I'm not mistaken, we only see the long wheelbase King Crunch in that video, not Pablo's, short wheelbase one that we know he did some TNT stuff with. So, and that's why I hope we can get Scott or Pablo on the show eventually, is because those guys were covering ground with 2 of the biggest promoters really early on, USA and TNT. But then, to your point, Outlaw 35 doesn't get a lot of video time. In the, equally important US Hot Rod Motor Rock Volume 1 video, Outlaw 35 is seen for like a split second doing a wheelie, as part of the montage with the 1812 overture, and that's pretty much about it. So in Monster Mania, you get a bit of interview with, I think his name was Kenny Fewox, is that right? That had that truck, and you get a little closer look at it with Dave doing, the commentary and the interview on it. I also think what's really cool about this video is it came early enough in the 80s, so it was like a late 85, early 86 production, I want to say. We had footage on the same tape of Taurus 1 and Jack Willman, but also as Barefoot 1, with Jack and Fred, behind the wheel and stuff like that. There's footage from the baseball stadium in Cleveland, of, both Barefoot trucks, essentially, nose to tail crushing cars at the same time and all that. And, oh man, that video is just, it outkicks its coverage. It shouldn't be as good as it is, I feel like.
Well, I almost ranked that one with the Bigfoot King of the Monster Trucks, where Mike Galloway went on the road with the Bigfoot guy. Those two, I think, are my top 5. I think it's those two, and then the Motor Madness USHRA one. That was pretty outstanding. Then, obviously, you dip into the Battle of the Truck.
Yeah.
Return of the Monster Trucks and War of the Monster Trucks. I mean, that's almost the holy grail of that era. I don't know if you agree. You can agree or disagree, but I think that's the holy grail of legit monster truck VHS video.
I mean, it's a longer debate than what we have time for tonight, but I would say if we could agree that there's like 12 apostles or 12 disciples of monster truck VHS history and we could assign them in order, I think a lot of those ones from that time period command those upper positions on that list. You know what I mean? Monster Mania from USA is clutch. Motor Rock, number 1, probably still my favorite in its original form. You can actually check out the OSMT Prime episode from last year of the extremely rare first version of Motor Rock, which actually features some licensed music that never made it to home VHS as far as we can tell. There was basically 2 versions with 2 different soundtracks that made it to production on the VHS, which is kind of cool to have that. I mean, you got Billy Joel songs in there, you got Blondie, you got Patrick Hernandez, you got Led Zeppelin, ZZ Top. I mean, it is a kick-ass fucking soundtrack, to be honest with you. And I'm going to sound sacrilegious to all you Eagles fans out there, but ending that video on a Glenn Frey song, I'm like, oh, come on. This is like the only downside apart from the black and white montage earlier. And they're like, we need a little more rock, where the Monster Mania VHS has everybody trumped. In fact, I would argue every USA home video release had kicking soundtracks, whether it was stock music or, Missouri, the band in the case of Monster Mania. But, on a more serious note, though, Dave unfortunately lost his wife in a motorcycle accident, about a little over a year ago. And I mean, what a rebound, and just a heart full of perseverance and just good vibes. I don't know how to describe it. I just don't know. I mean, I've been married almost 14 years and, it feels like a lifetime. So I can't imagine that, they'd been together literally decades, and to lose your wife on the motorcycle that you're getting, in the accident and yourself as well. And he's had a long road of physical recovery getting back to where he is. He details some of that. He's very open and just very, I mean, he bears his soul at times in this interview. So I think if you're any kind of just a good person, you're going to want to listen to what Mr. Bennett has to say, because the man has been through it and he's kept his spirits in a much higher place than I think I could ever expect to, Frank. And it just shows the strength of character that he has. And it's not just because he's a beloved monster truck announcer from the past, or that he's been a legendary truck and tractor pull announcer for the last 30 some odd years. I think it's just really that he ultimately ends up, really showing you how he's just a really good guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you take, what he did 30 years ago, 30 years plus, but that doesn't tell the whole story. I mean, that's what we know about him. But as the interview will tell you, like you said, I mean, you're going to learn a lot more about him than you ever thought you would know. I think that's good to know, because when you look back at it, you hear the voice and you hear the commentary for what he was doing back then. You hear the true life story that really brings it full circle for all of us. You said a lot of y'all grew up watching that. To learn about the guy behind it and learn more of the story, that's even better.
Yep. So oh, sorry. I'm gonna have to cut that out. I thought for a second we had not been recording. Holy fuck. We're good. Okay. Cut that bit out. So in any event, keep an eye on the Old School Monster Trucks Instagram account. So we sent a couple Coors Extra Gold Motor Spectacular hats to Mr. Bennett, and we sent the white and red trucker caps that we did. You bet your ass one of them's coming back here. And you bet your ass one's staying at his place, but we are going to have one we're going to give away to the fans through our Instagram account. So I haven't quite decided yet what the contest is going to be. Maybe somebody's going to have to tell us their best USA Motorsports story or share their best USA photo from their personal album. I'm not sure yet. We'll figure it out, but we will be giving away an autographed hat from Mr. Dave Bennett too, which I think is just super cool. And as we're going to jump around topics all season long on Bottom Dead Center and on OSMT, but USA Motorsports is kind of a big focus for us this season just because it kind of hit right for us. We'd talked about a lot of other things in past seasons, a lot of it US Hot Rod focus. So I'm going to say the phrase Monster Wars right now just to make sure that we say it every episode like we're supposed to. But there won't be quite as much Monster Wars talk this season as what we can maybe expect in following seasons, Frank. But, I got to say with, Dave's interview coming up and then we'll have Mike Reck next. So, we've got more interviews lined up after that. I'm just continually blown away by a guy that I knew. I don't want to give his name away yet because it's going to be a really fun surprise when we interview him, but a guy that has been involved in the sport since the middle 80s reached out to me, and I hadn't talked to him since I left Bigfoot. And just because, you fall out of touch with people, whatever. And we reconnected on the phone last Friday and talked for 2.5, 3 hours. And he's like, I got footage I want to send you. He's like, this is my guy that's digitizing stuff. Get in touch with him. We're going to get you my stuff. I'm going to mail you a box of photos to scan. I love what you're doing. Thanks to Jim Kramer. Jim Kramer reached out to this person in question and turned him on to what we're doing with OSMT. And I'm like, oh my God, we got a recommendation from Jim Kramer passing along. Like, that's all right. When the man speaks, you listen, it's that kind of deal. So we have a lot of really, really cool stuff in store, I think, this season. And Frank, I don't know what your thoughts on it are, but man, it is just incredible. I feel like we've covered so much ground together as a team here, but at the same time, it feels like all this has just gone by so fast.
It really has. And as much as we've covered and all the cool content we've gone through and on all the great interviews, there's still so much more. Still so much more to cover.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, Monster Wars, that's a whole thing for itself.
Yes.
And also the Penda. We touched on Penda before here and there, but there really is so much that was a core of our youth and growing up before we were even involved in the industry that tells the story for where we're at now. Not us, but I mean the business. There's so much to cover, Kyle, and I can't wait as we start digging through this and keep moving forward. And I can't even imagine the people that we're going to either stumble into or track down between back channels and people know and I know, and we'll say, oh, I know this guy. Well, this guy was here doing this. There's going to be so much that's going to come up that we don't even know now, but it's going to come up here and probably in the near future. So it's so exciting for what we've done, what is ahead. I think it's only going to get better.
I agree. One episode I'm excited for, I'm going to give everybody a little peek around the curtain because I'm the head asshole in charge and I have to run this ship. I get to pick a topic once in a while. I cannot wait till we talk about like track aesthetics. From painted lines and dirt to painted crush cars to, Brian Manson and I have a personal favorite item on the track, and that's Christmas trees. And I don't mean the kind with starting bulbs on it. I mean, like evergreen trees planted on the racetrack. Like that kind of stuff is going to be fun to break down and talk about because at the end of the day, the aesthetics of the race course for any kind of racing has to evolve and get more professional looking. for the series or the style of racing in question to properly advance. I mean, Formula One really wouldn't look as impressive on TV if all the tracks look like shit, right? And I think IndyCar has done a really good job of actually making their events look better over the last several years. And, of course, United States Hot Rod and Monster Jam have always kind of been at the pinnacle of good looking tracks, but there's certainly others that have done great jobs too that we'll highlight. And those are just, a handful of the topics that we have so much runway in front of us to get to. We're limited only by our own free time and people's willingness to listen to us talk, I think. So 2 very large limiting factors, admittedly, but anyhow. Well, Frank, any other topics you were wanting to chime in on, bring up, anything before we get to the second half of this show?
Really? I mean, not really. I mean, I just, we covered earlier, our trucks are staying busy and doing a lot of stuff. And, like you said, too, I'm looking forward to the interviews coming up and what's ahead. I think that's more exciting than anything, what is ahead for us. We've covered so much already, but there's still so much more to go, and I can't wait for it.
What's the date on that Boise show again? Remind me.
I think June, I believe. It's right after Baltimore. I'd have to look at the schedule.
Well, you better find out. You're supposed to be there,
Yeah, I'll be there regardless, right?
Yeah, somebody will make sure you get there.
Yeah, I'll be there. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't see us making it all the way to Boise for the show. However, if you guys drive through Cheyenne on the way out and back on Interstate 80, if you need a pit stop or somewhere to replenish the refrigerator, let's say, call your boy here. I got plenty of room for you to park and plenty of room to unload trucks if you need.
After Boise, so there's always that chance.
There you go. All right. Well, you're saying there's a chance. All right. It's not no. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break before we get to the second half of the show. This is a little bit longer of an episode, certainly between the interview and Frank and I's banter here at the start. But I tell you what, we're giving you your money's worth here on the Bottom Dead Center show. And if you're one of the 3 people that have complained, don't worry, checks in the mail for your membership refund. We got you covered on that. Last couple quick housekeeping notes, though. Check out our merch store. As always, it's your only way to make any kind of supporter contribution apart from your viewership, which we incredibly, we very much appreciate. But it's osmt.myspreadshop.com. We just did a really cool, and this was Justin Mosinger's idea, one of our anarchivists that you've seen on a couple of our episodes last season. And Justin, texted our group and he's like, man, I'm like so pumped for baseball to come back. He's like, we should do a post on OSMT about, baseball stadiums. So I came up with this modified version of baseball's opening day logo and, had to OSMT-ify it. And we spent, 4 or 5 days posting about ballpark shows, from back in the day. And Frank, that'll be part of, a venue episode or a track aesthetics episode of how you love or you might not like ballparks to do shows in, but I think they're cool as shit. So we did the opening day thing, and then I had a couple of people message us and ask us in the comments too, are you guys going to make stickers of the opening day logo? So I ended up releasing those today, which is, a couple days before you're actually seeing this, but we released a small line of limited time only opening day OSMT merch on the OSMT Mart. So again, got to get my plug in. Check that out, osmt.myspreadshop.com. Also want to thank some more of our amazing fans that have reached out and offer contributions to the OSMT Instagram page. Of course, longtime contributors, at Moribund Media on Instagram. Of course, Cale Putnam had chimed in with some stuff recently, and I can't remember if I mentioned him on a past episode, but, those of us in the community, we've known Cale for a super long time. So that was really cool. Dino Callis reached out recently. Bobby Spage had some great photos, and just more and more people are reaching out and wanting to share stuff. And a special shout out to the Virginia Giant crew too. We were talking with them on Messenger earlier today and exchanging some photos and, kind of working with them and some other people to try and get maybe some collaborative content going. You never know. They are the house truck reigning champion of the Battle of the Coolest Monster Trucks. So, when the king comes calling, I guess you have to answer that message. But anyhow, I'll quit rambling. We're going to get to a quick intermission break, and then we'll be right back for the second half of the show.
Setback, short. Setback, short. Jolt. Setback. Strap yourself down, take a deep seat because we're fixing to go fast with the Coors Motors Mechanic.
All right, welcome back. Bottom Dead Center here on the Old School Monster Trucks YouTube channel, and bringing our very special, as promised, interview with the one and only legendary announcer, Mr. Dave Bennett. Dave, I don't think you need a whole lot of introduction to monster truck fans, at least of the kind that follow us here on Old School Monster Trucks. But I tell you what, buddy, we are immensely grateful to have you on our show with us. And I know, speaking for Matt Looker as a fellow announcer as well, just your announcing work on the mic alone is enough to have you on our radar. But the fact that you were one of the voices on possibly the greatest VHS of our childhoods with Monster Mania. Certainly,
not possibly.
Okay, it's undeniably the best. But how you doing this evening? And where are you calling into us from? Tell us what's going on today.
I'm in basically central Oklahoma. I'm 30 miles south of Oklahoma City. I got white on the ground, just kind of like Matt does up there. Right now, outside, we're down to about 18 degrees, which is really cold for us. And I've been housebound for about a week, and that's okay. I don't go out and feed cattle no more. I don't got to go out and feed cattle no more. I'm just enjoying what I do.
Well, all right. I can understand that. It's believe it or not, we missed out on most of that snow and only had a couple days of really cold weather up here in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where I'm at. So, I don't wish ill on nobody, but I've kind of had a bit of a laugh watching everybody deal with the snow that I usually have to deal with like crazy up here. I mean, I'm practically in vacation weather out here.
Yeah, you've been cold enough though.
Yeah. It got cold. I mean, this beard's not just for hiding chins; it's for keeping my face warm too. So getting down to the brass tacks of it, Dave. So, you're well renowned by us monster truck fans for your work back in the day with USA Motorsports, but certainly you have a very long lasting and continuing announcing career in things like truck and tractor pulling, of course. So before we get to all of that, though, and by God, we're going to tell us a little of your backstory, man. I mean, where were you from? Where did you grow up? And how the heck did you find pulling and motorsports in general?
Well, that'll take up your whole hour if you want that whole story.
I'll make 2 hours if you want. It don't bother me.
Well, the fact of I'm sitting on the same section of ground right now that I was born and raised on.
Oh, wow.
So Nenekaw, Oklahoma, we always had fun with Nenekaw. Other announcers had fun trying to pronounce Nenekaw, but I'm just another country boy, raised in the country. Went to a 2-room brick schoolhouse, 4 grades in one room, 4 grades in another room, outdoor toilets, all 8 grades. And I graduated from Nenekaw and went to work as a parts man. And one day I was at the parts store working front counter. Never heard of a tractor pull, didn't know one dadgum thing about a tractor pull, none whatsoever. No boy brought in a brochure of a pull that was going to happen about 20 miles over. I looked at the brochure. Being a country kid, it kind of intrigued me just a little bit. Of course, I was a hot rodder. I had a 67 Mustang. I could burn the back tires off of a car any day of the week. When I was in school, I drawed pictures of modified tractors. Didn't even know what a modified tractor was, but I drew them back in the day. A hot rod, tractor tires and a motor. Didn't even know there was such a thing, but I drew them. They're dealing in the book. So anyhow, I went to the tractor pull over here in Fort Cobb, Oklahoma, and we're sitting there, and it was interesting. That was the old sled that it actually had a tractor sitting on it, and then they would step on as it went by, and then they put other stuff on it, and anyhow, they had a modified tractor there. Harold Chenoweth and Dick Ramming had a mod tractor there. Didn't know there was such a thing until they fired that up and they brought it around the corner of the barn. And they just done a little demo thing with it. And I decided right then and there I had to have it. And that was in 1974 is when that was. And in 75, I went to Fort Worth, Texas at an indoor, in the Southwest Machinery Show tractor pull in Fort Worth was just as big and just as famous as what Louisville became. And that was around here, you went to Fort Worth. And so I went down there with a tape measure and a notebook in hand, and I went to building and was building in 76, pulled it out in late 76. I had a modified tractor, and there was a couple other guys the same way. We went to a couple of pulls. I loved it. Just farm boys, build it in the shop and go spin and grin. And then
that's awesome.
Got involved in the local association, got to be president of the association. My job as president to work with promoters, setting up the show, getting an announcer, whatever. Mike Galloway, y'all know that name very, very well.
Oh,
To
yeah.
give you a bit of a clue, Mike Galloway only lives about 5 miles from me, right up the road here. In town.
Wait, so you're telling me if it wasn't snowy, we could have 4 announcers on this call right now?
It would not be hard to do, none whatsoever, because Galloway just lives right up here in Chickasha.
That's awesome.
And he was our state announcer. And I went with him to an indoor show up here in Oklahoma City. We snuck our way in, and it was an SRO show at USHRA. We called it SRO back in the day. And Bob George was announcing. And we're walking the floor. I'm just enjoying the show. And Galloway says, watch this. And he goes up to Bob George. Bob George's desk was on a little bit of a riser, about 1.5 feet, 2 foot tall. Galloway sticks his hand out. Bob George going to shake his hand. Galloway introduced himself. He says, my name is Mike Galloway. I'm an announcer, and I'm better than you are. To Bob George, the owner of SRO.
Yeah.
And that intrigued Bob George. Anyhow, he wound up hiring Galloway to start traveling with him. And Galloway called me up one day. We had a show in Miami, Oklahoma, and he said, I can't turn it down. I've got to drop your show. I'm going to go with SRO, but I'm gone that weekend. So I just picked up the microphone and jumped into it. My first show was in Miami, Oklahoma in 1977 late.
Wow.
Might have been 78. Anyhow, Galloway moved up the ladder. I took his place. I started doing local shows. Back in those days, NTPA had to have a sponsored announcer, not a sponsored announcer, but an approved announcer if there was going to be a sanctioned NTPA event. I just wanted my name on that approved announcers list, knowing that there wouldn't be no NTPA shows down here to do. I just wanted my name on that list. I worked around, and I had bought some parts off of Gary Sporhays out of Holyoke, Colorado, and he knew me, and he was on the board of directors NTPA at the time. We had a pull. There was a pull up in Buffalo, Oklahoma. He come down from Holyoke. I went from here up there. I'd done that show just so he could hear me and approve me. I got my name on that announcers list. Went on. I was doing shows in New Mexico. I was just freelancing. Come in the house one day and the phone was ringing, and it was USA. They had just got through doing their first 2 shows. Their first show was in Foxborough, and then they went down to Miami, and then they come over to Dallas. And they was NTPA approved. John Hyman was running with them and some big guns.
Yeah. Yep.
And my name was on the approved announcers list. They got my number. I walked in the house at the right time. Phone was ringing. I picked it up. This gal said she was from United Motorsports. I had just heard from them because they was just knocking home runs at Foxborough and Miami. And they wanted to know what I'd charged to come to Dallas. And she'd have played the cards right. I'd have paid them to go to Dallas. And
So can I ask for just a quick second? And I think Matt and I'd both like to know this answer. What was the NTPA's, motivation to make sure their announcers were kind of on an approved registered list? Was it to make sure that you really knew your business of announcing truck and tractor pulling so you didn't, slip up
needed to
during
know
the
the
show
sport.
or what's
Yeah.
that?
You needed to know the sport. If you was going to announce to a crowd, it was so green back in those years. You had to explain to the crowd what was going on. A lot of people, even when I was pulling my modified tractor down the road, the CV had come on. Where you going with that mud racer? They thought it was a mud bogger
Mm.
and such as that. So we had to explain explain tractor pulling to the crowd. And the NTPA wisely, rather than Timbuktu trying to get a local DJ that couldn't spell the word pulling, tried to announce John Hyman in the loudmouth line. They wanted somebody that knew what it was, who he was, to kind of give you the build-up of the sport. And that's the reason why they used approved announcers. They knew what they was going to get as far as announcers were concerned.
I know I'm sure I can speak for both of you, but monster truck shows that I've been at where, say, the venue is a fairgrounds and their fairgrounds announcer is doing like the pre-show announcing, when they mispronounce the drivers' names, that the hardcore fans came to see Dan Runney or Larry Swim in Bigfoot, and the fairgrounds announcer says, "Yeah, we got a lot of trucks here like Bigfoot with Dan Runt." It just makes the show look less professional and just like, oh, what are we doing here? But when you got an announcer that just makes the crowd feel like they're part of something, which you do a lot better than both me and Kyle. But when you have an announcer that knows what they're doing, it just makes it look a whole lot more professional. And that's good that they were able to see that.
Professionalism goes a long way, and you don't, it's how you present it. You can blow smoke sometimes, but you can do it in such a way that the crowd don't know you're blowing smoke. And you get, in a dead microphone, I hate a dead microphone. That just kills the show totally.
Sure does.
I've been criticized a little bit for it because some people want to hear the motors revving up and this and that and other. You got to time it. There's certain ways to go about doing it. But anyhow, I traveled down to Arlington, Texas Stadium, walked into the Cowboys cheerleaders dressing room. That's where their office was. And there's no mirrors. It ain't as fancy as y'all think it is. It's just wooden hook all the way around.
Yeah.
And then I walked up to the lady behind the desk, told her who I was, what I was there for, and she told me that Mr. Russ Klein would be with me in a little bit. Please stand. I turned around, and there was a starch shirt guy hit me right underneath the chin, introduced himself as Russ Klein, put his finger in my chest. It's a true story. Put his finger in my chest, said, "I'm Russ Klein. I'm part owner of United Sports of America. You're only here because I have to have you here. And your job is tractor pull announcer, and that's all you do."
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Yeah. Alrighty.
He was very blunt, very to the point. And back in those days, you had to have an armed guard take you up into the announcer's booth. You went past all the suites and all that, where Don Meredith and Howard Cosell sat and done football. That's where I sat with Russ Klein to do the show. And it was a 3-ring circus. I mean, there was just tractor pull and mud racing and motorcycle, transforming robots. It was a 3-ring circus, hard to keep up with. And I knew the sled, I knew the pullers, I knew the Howman by reputation. And Russ would do everything. He was quite the hype announcer. And he'd do everything until it come to pulling, and I'd jump in and do my thing. Well, I popped off a couple of mother-in-law jokes. Y'all are well aware of the mother-in-law.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're going to have to sneak a couple in on us tonight just for old time's sake, though.
From a flame-throwing jet racer to a nitrous oxide-burning monster comes the truck Barefoot 2. The only thing that I know is bigger than my mother-in-law on both ends. Watch that Volkswagen fly! Wish my mother-in-law had been sitting in that one.
Well, you talk about digging archives. But anyhow, there was something happened, and I popped off one of them. He leaned back in that chair, laid his microphone on the table, and he says, "You think you're pretty dadgum good, don't you?"
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Yeah. And I said, "No, sir, I just know what I know." That's when he put the microphone on the table, and he said, "Well, just do the whole damn show then." And just took his chair and slid it right back to the back wall. Well, by the time you get through that little bit of 30 seconds or something, there's already something going on the floor, whether it be a monster truck or whether it be a mud racer. And I knew enough about motors. That's when I started blowing smoke. I didn't know monster trucks come here from Sikkim. Yeah, I knew Bigfoot, but I didn't know. And our mud racers was out of Missouri. I couldn't have told you a story about none of them, but having the mechanical ability that I had of building a modified tractor, knowing how a motor works, and such as this, I just went to work. Whatever was going on the floor, I put a little hype into it and took off and done it. About, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes later, he comes sliding back up to the desk, and we worked together, and he closed the show. I went down to the dressing room. They paid me. I come home the next week. Phone rang again, and it was United Sports. And this lady said, Mr. Klein would like to have your presence in Indianapolis. And we moved from Dallas to Indianapolis, and me and Russ done many a show together before he finally let me just do solo. And that's how I got started into the monster truck world, transitioning from tractor pulling into monster trucks.
So that's pretty incredible. I mean, Russ was obviously a big part of, you know, the ownership and the money backing of USA Motorsports, but that's pretty wild, I think, for a lot of us to learn that he was so hands-on in those early days with, you know, he wasn't just a money guy throwing cash at this investment and having people run the shows. I mean, he was in the trenches with you there announcing.
You know what his job was when USA started? What his paycheck job was when USA started?
I'd say whatever he needed to do.
He was I'm looking for the right word, the promotions director of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
He's
that I knew. I thought you meant whatever his job title was with USA was.
No. He was promotion director of Kansas City Royals and Chiefs.
Yep.
And so he had an inside track to get these major stadiums.
Yep.
And that went a long ways.
What a lot of folks don't realize too, and I've picked up on some of this being a native Kansas City and digging into Russ's story a little, is he did a lot of let's say traditional sports events with Kauffman Stadium and Arrowhead Stadium. And I think that's why he did so good with USA, is because he was instrumental in bringing like concerts and non-football games and things like that to Arrowhead. And of course he brought, you know, Mudathon in its first form before they were even called USA into Arrowhead. So that's a great point you make there that a lot of folks don't realize, is he had some big league experience literally and figuratively with some of those big venues and bringing expensive touring properties to some of these places that weren't built for him.
And you talk about like the concerts, the third spoke in a 3-spoke wheel of United Sports was Chris Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
He come from the concert world. He's the one that promoted concerts. So you take Russ being able to do what he did over here with Chris being able to get the concerts. That's where they done, like you was talking about, bringing in concerts and stuff like that. And then the third spoke, I never did really meet them too much. I met them down in Miami. There's a long story there too, but anyhow, I think one of them was Zuckerman, wasn't that one? There was the two of them was the third wheel in United Sports, but they was behind the scenes most of the time.
That's pretty forward thinking of those guys to jump on board with indoor, let's call it indoor motorsports like truck and tractor pulling, mud bogs, and even monster trucks. And so they obviously brought you into that fold pretty early on in USA's tenure. Then it sounds like.
Now, as far as I know, I was involved in the third show that they ever put on.
Wow.
I'm just sitting here as a kid or as an adult who as a kid watched Monster Mania VHS whenever my mom would let me rent it from the store. I'm now realizing that the only reason that the voice of Monster Mania was on Monster Mania is because you decided to make a mother-in-law joke over someone else's announcing territory.
And here they come! The big boys with the big toys. Stars of the National Motor Spectacular. The biggest four-wheel drive show in America today.
Monster Mania, the biggest toys rolling on wheels as you watch them pull into the Miami Orange Bowl, getting ready for the crushing of the cars. Outlaw, 35, Barefoot, and the King Crunch as they travel from many states far and wide to perform in front of millions of people coast to coast.
The mother-in-law that was my forte, and about the only thing that you could talk about that you didn't that was mine. That wasn't nobody else's. You wasn't talking about the religion or the politics or the fat guy or the bald headed. It was something of my own. As time progressed, though, it got to be kind of a touchy issue. I got told at a very big show way after Monster Trucks that killed the mother-in-law jokes because one of the fair board members didn't like it.
Well, I would argue that guy needs to broaden his sense of humor a little bit because I know we appreciate him. But I was digging through my notes while you were telling that story with Matt there, and I found my notes from some of the ownership group of USA, and you were right. It was Russ Klein, Chris Fritz, Irv Zuckerman, and then also Steve Shankman from the same company as Irv Zuckerman Contemporary Sports. So that was kind of the cats that were the ownership group behind USA. But so help me understand, because obviously we're focusing on the wider story here, and we don't get too into the nuts and bolts of monster trucks or anything like that as far as the technical side goes, but we do like the human stories of it. So as a puller, by roots and by definition, how did you feel about monster trucks early on, and did that change as they sort of outgrew their role as almost a sideshow act and then kind of came to take over the events?
Tractor pulling was a trial and error. You built it. If it blowed up or if it hurt somebody, you made a rule against it. Monster trucks really wasn't no different. I remember the first show that I can remember, and I can't remember much anymore since the wreck, but anyhow, I was out in Albuquerque, New Mexico with Jim Stackus and his group doing a show, and they had Bigfoot out there. Pretty impressive. He come through the door at a slow crawl, as they did back in the old days. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Hit a car, done a little bit of wheel stand, popped down, jumped up on top of him, and it's pretty amazing just to see the size. I mean, just seeing that thing come through the doorway awed people. But then to see what that sport become, what that sport went to with all the technology and understanding the mechanics, and is pretty amazing. And then you talk about, coming from the tractor pulling world where people was hanging back in those days, Banner was hanging 7 motors, just the mechanics of it. But monster trucks didn't do it with the mechanics of the horsepower like tractor pulling did. Monster trucks dug into the suspension that was, the gas over shocks and all that. Just watching that grow was just amazing. From a crawl, it's kind of like watching a baby learn how to crawl, and then all of a sudden he's the fastest human being in the world. It was pretty amazing watching that transition.
So USA booked Bigfoot, a handful of times that we have, schedule evidence of in, let's say, the early years of USA, but they really leaned on Jack Willman and Fred Schaefer with Taurus and Barefoot, both when they were together as just the Barefoot team with their 2 trucks, and then later after they had kind of their acrimonious split, and Jack
Willman was in their back pocket. Willman would travel anywhere, and Jack, I enjoyed running with Jack. He was very interesting. I had him here in Chickasha one time. We done a little old promo. I set up a promo at a car dealership over here, and Jack come by the house, but he knew his place. He knew how to put on a show. He didn't try to be the showboat. He didn't try to overdo. He was always safe. Very good. Barefoot, I never had no trouble with any of the guys. Dan Patrick with his truck. All the guys knew their place. That's one thing about USA. Y'all know how the monster truck world worked in those days, even back then, even though one group didn't own every truck in the world. But all the owners knew their place. In other words, let's go out there and put on a show. I'm getting paid to put on a show. Yeah, they'd love to win, but they wouldn't. We hired the guys that wouldn't overstep the boundary to win. Mm-hmm. And that's where the Willmans and the Schaefers and even Kramer with Bigfoot and such as that. You know, we took Bigfoot to Australia in '89. Willman went over. You just had to have the right group. There were some people in the world that thought if they could do a double backwards flip that they would be the monster truck of the world. They didn't realize what they was there for, and that's the ones that didn't live with USA too long.
So having worked for Tim and Mark Hall, the Hall brothers, and then at Bigfoot, I've heard a lot of great stories about the USA days. And that's something that both, you know, a lot of tenured guys in those organizations, Tim and Mark, of course, but like Kramer and, you know, even Bob Chandler himself has told me how much they miss. Everybody calls it the USA days because, like you said, everybody ran accordingly. They understood their role in the event. You know, Kramer has elaborated to us in the past that sometimes there was a little bit of animosity between the truck and tractor pulling guys and the monster truck guys at the SRO shows. You know, there was maybe a little dislike between them, but he always indicated to us that on the USA side, people tended to get along a little bit better. It was more of, like you said, it was a traveling road show where everybody kind of had a job rather than, you know, cutthroat competition necessarily every week, at least in those early years.
And it, you know, I could name pretty much most of the show producers, but Steve Wood was the lead show producer. And Woody run a tight ship. Steve run a very tight ship. But nobody told me how to announce. Nobody had an earpiece in my ear that said, say this, walk out there on that hill, say this, such as that. They turned me loose. As long as I was in the building by a certain time and I had my paperwork and I run the show, I never was chastised about doing anything wrong, but I knew my place. The monster trucks, same way. We might have been sponsored by Chevrolet, but we didn't care if Bigfoot won, even if we had a Chevrolet sponsorship. Make it look competitive, but stay safe. And Woody had his thumb on the monster truck boys, but they all knew their place. Specialty acts, whether it be Dynamite Lady or Wheelie King or whatever, they was in the right place. The shows just run. I mean, they was just like clockwork, and the show producer was just making sure everything was in place. But they was the good old days. I mean, we just done our job. Simple as that.
You know, I think you hit on a real important thing that you come to learn if you've worked in this industry any amount of time. You're talking about people knowing their place and how you wouldn't have to be micromanaged. A lot of times, knowing your place, running accordingly carries a negative thing if you haven't worked at these events. So for anyone that's listening that isn't an industry insider, I guess, those are good things. When you have an announcer that doesn't, all you have to say is, here's the format, and that's all you got to say to them for the whole show. Because I do a event managing and announcing. When you got an announcer, all you got to do is say, here's the format, I'll see you after the show. Man, that show runs smoothly. If you got truck drivers that know, okay, they can hit it hard going this way, they need to be careful over here. We don't want them to do a 5-minute freestyle to close the show out. We just need 2 good minutes. That's what makes it good. And I'm feeling like I maybe missed out on not getting able to work on a USA show because I was too young. I'm sure Kyle feels the same way.
No, I do. And I think, you know, you talk about Jack not being, I want to come back to Taurus real quick. You talk about Jack not overdriving or being too much of a showman, but at the same time, he kind of was just by what he was willing to do with Taurus. So I wonder, what did you think the first time you got to announce when Jack was crushing buses with Taurus? I mean, that was...
You know, I thought, and I seen a deal on your Facebook page, that he had crushed bus before he come to Dallas. But I was under the understanding that was the first time at a show that he crushed buses, and that was in Dallas. And of course, I'm 9 million feet up in there. That was the worst thing about those shows. When you're doing a stadium, you almost got to have binoculars to know what's going on. And everybody was very concerned. They had prepared the buses to where they would kind of cradle in, not knowing if he'd slide off. Nobody knew. would the paint be dry enough? Would the paint make it slick? Would this happen? Would that happen? And everybody, Woody was right down there next to him, and Jack crawled up on the hood, crawled up and put the front tires up on the on top of the bus. And I'm sitting there working him, and then it just stopped. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be something wrong, and I'm still trying to build the hype and this and that and other. Woody come over the radio and made the statement, Jack said this was going to be way too easy. Watch out. Because he had done figured out he could crawl up on top of him very easily.
Yeah.
And so he backed up, and he done him a little bit of a wheel stand and come down on top of him. He did get off to the edge a little bit, but he didn't fall off. But I'll never forget the suspense right there for a little bit from where I was sitting. Of the fact that, okay, he stopped. Why did he stop? He could, And then when Woody came over the radio and said, Jack said it's too easy, look out. So I was impressed at the buses. I really was.
That's some pretty unnerving stuff. I mean, I've hit buses as a driver before, but I didn't have to do them without dirt ramps. I didn't have to do them with nothing but a lap belt and probably a full ashtray in the cab of the truck. I had a little more going for me in terms of safety and power, I suppose. But I also, and we're going to keep doting on that, Monster Mania video as this thing goes on, but seeing Jack take the big tires off the front of Taurus and do the wheel standing pull on the sled, yep. That's not something I've seen evidence of a whole bunch of times. That pretty rare occurrence, I imagine. But where do ideas like that come from, in your opinion? I mean, is this something where you guys are just bullshitting in the pits and you're like, it'd be cool tonight if, or is that something?
There was a lot of that. USA would come up with the ideas of doing stuff like that, and I kind of I didn't throw Jack under the bus one time, but he was out on the track doing his thing, was doing a pull. He was actually in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is where he was. And I knew he had pulled the sled before. And so I just popped off to the crowd about Taurus hooking to the sled. And they just erupted. He went outside the building. He was going to come back. He come around the back. He come up to me. He didn't really at that time appreciate me putting him in that position without him knowing what was going on. He didn't like surprises like that, and he would do it, but he wanted to talk to the sled man first. So there had to be some preparations, but I learned not to throw something out there like that on a surprise to him.
Monster truck drivers love it when the announcer volunteers them to do something they weren't planning on. I can having announced and driven, I can tell you. Oh, that's great. So Matt and I both have our own unique announcing styles. And before you got on with us this evening, we were talking about how we have our quote unquote radio voices we use for this. We have our announcing voices when we're projecting to the crowd, and of course, just our usual, dumb sounding daily voices, or at least dumb sounding in my case. But your accent, your drawl, your manner of speaking, your cadence, just from talking on the phone with you the other night, you Dave Bennett is Dave Bennett, and that's what you get. And if that's the kind of announcing you like, then by God, you're going to be pretty happy. But I'm sure there's pieces to your style beyond just the mother-in-law joke. How did you find those pieces over the years? How did you refine your announcing style over the years?
Just basically trial and error. You just go do county fairs and you go do I-5 shows, or back when I was freelancing, just working for anybody, do a little bit of TNT. You learn how to draw something out or take just a second to give them the distance or the time to where it builds a little suspense. It ain't something you practice. It's something you learn over time that the crowd responded to. And you're like, oh man, I like the way that crowd responded to that. I got to remember to do that again. Nothing but just years of experience.
Have you ever had one of those moments, like we see in the, like in Spinal Tap, where the guy has to look at the back of his guitar to see which city he's in because he wrote it in tape? Did you ever have a Hello Cleveland moment and you were in Cincinnati?
I have had one or two of those. I've had one or two of those. You take a look. I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not.
Yeah.
That's a coffee cup the USA
Whoa.
give everybody,
Oh, that's bad.
and all that is nothing but towns. I know you can't get a
Yeah.
good shot of it, but
Oh,
them are
that's
all
cool.
towns.
Yeah.
And to know that I've been to the Virginia Civic Center and Huntsville, Alabama, and Glen Falls, New York. I've been to every one of those
Hey.
places. You just
That's not far from
learn.
me.
And I will say, with you being up in New York, Matt, I learned, and I didn't change nothing, but I learned that the people accepted me different up in the New Yorks and the Bangor, Maines, and such as that. They're a different clientele of people than you'll run into in San Francisco or Albuquerque or whoever, whatever. You kind of had to get a feel for a crowd as what they liked and didn't like, but I still had to be me. And
Right.
I'll throw something at y'all right quick. Y'all ever have the full moon syndrome?
Well, if you're meaning a crowd that got a little rowdy and out of hand, I've had a couple wild ones. Yeah.
Full moons, I did not really like doing shows during full moons.
No. No, I announced a show once and we had 2 trucks roll over. One truck didn't even run the show. We had building damage and there was at least 2 fist fights I seen in the crowd that probably had alcohol involved. So yeah, that was one of those nights where it's like, just get me the hell out of here and back to the hotel. I'm not even going to Denny's. I'm just going back to my room.
Where's the motel key at? I'm gonna lock the door.
Yep, that's
Yep.
right.
I have been there.
What are some of your favorite venues that or cities or anything like that maybe you remember from your time announcing back in those days that you really enjoyed?
That's very interesting. Medford, Oregon was always a place I liked because it was warm down here and you could snow ski up there, no different than Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hartford, Connecticut was one that I won't forget because I had a spectator of the motel and the venues connected. In other words, you just leave your motel room, go downstairs, walk into the venue. And I told one of my jokes, not a mother-in-law joke, but I told one of my jokes that Jesus wound up being a Doberman pinscher. Jesus is watching you. I'm sure y'all heard that.
I don't know that I have. You might have to give us that one. We can edit it out if you want, but I think we got to hear that one. Yeah, let us hear it.
You pick out somebody you got to introduce somebody to the crowd where you can pick on the flagman or whoever, whatever.
Yeah.
And he travels with us all over the United States. And while we was down in Miami last week, he had a burglar break into his house. This burglar goes into the living room and he sees a fancy little something over here on the coffee table and he picks it up and he hears this voice, Jesus is watching you. He looks up and over here in the plate glass window, by the light of the plate glass window, there's this parrot sitting on a podium. Okay, he ain't worried none. He goes over to the fireplace and he gets something, puts in his sack, and this parrot says, Jesus is watching you. Spooks him a little bit, but he goes on. He goes over to the chest china cabinet and gets something, puts in his sack, and one for the third time, this parrot says, Jesus is watching you. That's all the burglar could take. That's all he could take. He goes over, flips on the light switch, looks back over at that parrot and says, is that all you can say? Parrot says, nope, cocks his head sideways, looks down at a 3-foot tall Doberman pinscher and says, stick him, Jesus.
That's good stuff. Yeah, you can't tell those stories now. Somebody will get butthurt, but that's pretty good. I like that.
But I got a phone call the next day. I was in the motel room, and how they got my room number, but they informed me they did not appreciate me putting Jesus on a Doberman pinscher. So I'll always remember Hartford, Connecticut. But probably one of the buildings that I loved the most was Toronto, the Sky Dome.
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So the dome shows, did they usually keep you up in a radio booth, or did you ever get to maybe announce a little more freehand down lower where you could really feel the action and,
When they brought Mike Harbit, you've heard of him.
Now fired up, let's bring out the big boys with the big toys. These are some of the very best monster trucks and monster truck drivers in the land today. you're going to see some highly competitive qualifying action as well as some side-by-side monster truck racing here this evening.
When they brought Mike Harbit in, they let me go down on the floor and work the floor.
Nice.
And I was more the action guy. Harbit was more the numbers guy. Who's in first, who's in second, such as that. And that's when I got to started doing the floor. But it was a rarity to do a major on the floor.
But the arenas, you'd usually try and move around a little bit more and call those from down lower.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The arenas, you could walk around, you could get one-on-one with the crowd. That's what I enjoyed doing, getting one-on-one in the crowd or giving the kid in the stands a blower belt or a lug nut or something like that or a piece of chrome off the car. You can form a bond with the crowd, and you can take, once you form that bond, you both well know this, once you form that bond, you can take that crowd anywhere you want to.
Absolutely.
Definitely. That's a great point. I mean, you can kind of, it's like Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden once said, he's like, when I'm putting on a show, he's like, everybody in front feels and sees everything I'm doing. But he's like, I want to reach out to that very last person in the nosebleeds way at the back and be making eye contact with that guy too. So he's back there like, what? Me? He's pointing at me. Like he made it all the way back here to me. And it's harder to do in a stadium. You're so right. But
You can't do that.
no, but I tell you what, man, you get a rowdy arena on the night before a full moon and you can have a pretty good show on your hands there.
Yeah, that is. I remember I was working with Russ. It was the second or third time we was in Miami at the Orange Bowl. And right down in front of us, there was a fight broke out. And y'all know as announcers, you don't call attention to that. You try to get everybody to look at the other end of the arena. Yeah. Russ didn't do that. He made attention to the fight, and the fight grew tremendously.
Who would have thunk it?
That wasn't the same. That wasn't the same moment that the jet-powered mud dragster drove up in the stands. He wasn't taking attention away from that and shifting it to the fight for some reason, was he?
It's a conspiracy. That's why the
it's a conspiracy.
Yeah. Trying to break up the fight. That was a different time, but no, that was, and I couldn't believe he called attention to it. But Jiminy Christmas, that's not a good place to be in the middle of a fight.
No, I don't believe so. Send out the jet truck. There's a fight. We got to break it up. So, anyways, I'll bring us back on track a little bit.
Okay.
So, how much longer after the 80s were you announcing for USA Motorsports? Obviously, in 98, the organization was sold to,
Right.
SRO Pace, US Hot Rod, whatever you want to call it. But were you continuing to announce for USA through the 90s, or did you find your way back to other things?
I was still working for USA, very much. To my knowledge, and y'all would know more about this than me, but to my knowledge, I was the only announcer that was put under contract that I got a paycheck every week, whether I done a show or not, year round for 7 years.
Nice.
That's a
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't recall a lot of people that had that deal, so I'm thinking you're probably right on that.
I'll tell you how that came about. I'd done some shows, worked quite a few shows for USA, and the phone rang one day, and it was the same little sweet lady secretary. They wanted me to be in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I don't know, someplace on a certain date. And I looked at my calendar and I told her I can't. I'm already booked. No, Mr. Bennett, we've got you booked to be in Chattanooga. You need to change your plans. I said, I can't change my plans. I'm pre-booked. She put me on hold. And about a minute later, when Russ Klein picked up that phone, there was fireballs coming through that telephone. He was up. He wanted to know who, what, when, and where. TNT had hired me to do a show in Tyler, Texas. And I was pre-booked. They'd hired me to go down there. I was freelance. And he told me in 10 words and less to cancel that show. I was working for him. He had made me who I was. I made the statement to him that the only way he could control me like that, I was a freelance announcer. I done give my word. I wasn't going to give that show up. And the only way he could control me like that is if I worked for him. He said, hang on. He slammed the phone down. You could hear, I bet he broke that phone. About 5 minutes later, this little sweet voice come back on. Mr. Bennett, will you be able to be at the airport in the morning, pick up a set of tickets to come to Kansas City? So the next morning, I drove to Oklahoma City. There was a set of airplane tickets there waiting on me. I got on. They picked me up at the airport. We went to USA office, and we hammered out a deal to where I would work for nobody else without Russ's permission, and I'd go on contract. And I done that, and when he done that, when I signed the paperwork and shoved it over to him, and now he shoved me the paperwork, and I was fixing to sign it, and then that's what it was. He made the statement. He said, now you call TNT and tell them you're not doing that damn show. I hadn't signed the paperwork yet, and I slid it back to him. I said, Russ, I can't do that. You're going to tell me you're going to turn this deal down? I said, Russ, if I tell you I'm going to do something and somebody offers me $1.50 more over here, you wouldn't appreciate it if I told you I was and left you to do that. I'm a man of my word. And if that's going to cost me this deal, so it costs. I'm a man of my word, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do Tyler, Texas. He pushed that contract back to me, and with explicative words, told me to sign it, go ahead and do the Tyler show, but I was to call him anytime anybody wanted me to announce anywhere. And I just done some county fairs around here, but I never worked for nobody else.
Looker, I don't know about you, but that would have been like a dream announcing contract for me in my days, man. Like I think I got undercut by a golden retriever once trying to announce an amp show. So like, come on.
Dude, I'm telling you, you got to be in the upper crust of motorsports announcers to be able to have that kind of deal thrown at you. That
was shocking. It was shocking. And it come out to their benefit and my benefit. It was to everybody's benefit. It's like in 89, we went over there for 2 weeks. In Australia in 89, we went back in 91 for 90 days straight. I was on contract. I didn't get paid no extra. I got per diem money, but I was under contract. They sent the checks to Linda here at the house. And I done my job over there, and no brainer.
How was that going to announce in Australia? I mean, that was pretty groundbreaking to send American monster trucks, out of the country overseas that far away, certainly. What was that like going down there for you and getting to be, at the pointy tip of the spear, taking USA down there?
You remember the movie Man from Snowy River?
Not ringing a bell, I'm afraid.
Y'all are young. There's a production company in Australia, Michael Edgley Productions. He's the one that produced the money behind Man from Snowy River, and it's a pretty popular movie back in the day. And so USA partnered with Michael Edgley Productions. That's how we got in those buildings, and we've done the Melbourne Tennis Center and all that good stuff. And I have always said the only reason I was in part of that crew was because of my voice and my dialogue. Americans like to listen to Australians. Australian likes to listen to the guy from the South. And I had to we got down there, and in the Melbourne Tennis Center, the holy ground of tennis, we done a full dress rehearsal the first night. Michael Edgley sat up in the stands, him and Woody, with radios. And I had to open the show just like I was talking to 50,000 people and introduce and do, and they'd stop us and back up, and Edgley wanted it produced a certain way. Once we got through that and got out in the country to the racetracks and stuff like that, I went back to being me and done my thing.
That's interesting. So you guys worked, like, did you pretend the show was happening, or did they run trucks and everything? So it was like
we done a full, complete dress rehearsal, full show and everything. And I'll tell you something else that was interesting. In 91, Edgley had the Vienna Boys Choir over there in Australia touring around. And they are a heavily protected group, very heavily protected. You could not talk to one of those boys unless they had a guardian there standing with them. Very heavily protected. And we put on a private performance for the Vienna Boys Choir, start to finish in the middle of the afternoon, so the Vienna Boys Choir could see our show, top to bottom.
Wow.
Let me turn this
That's
light
kind
on.
of stuff.
Oh, you're good. Let there be light, says Dave Bennett. and the light turns on, damn it.
I've got power, boys.
I see that. God damn. All right. Jesus is watching you, and so's Dave Bennett. Son of a bitch. No, so hey, Kenny Kelly, how'd you hurt your neck on Saturday? I was driving Bigfoot at a show for the Vienna Boys Choir. Like that's a sentence that no monster truck driver ever gets to say.
Yeah, we had. You remember Lyle Hancock?
Of course, yeah.
He was our showboater on that trip.
Yep.
I helped him put more motors in Gravedigger than I could cared to do. I get greasy from head to toe and have to be hauled to the motel to take a quick shower to come back to do a show, get him running. But Woody stuck his finger in Lyle's nose and told him when we was doing that performance for the Vienna Boys Choir, we had a show that night.
Yeah.
Pull back on the throttle, and he had to stand on Lyle pretty good on that deal.
I mean, I guess Dennis picked his Gravedigger drivers for a reason, but also, Looker, you'll agree with me on this. Those guys got Dennis in more financial bind than he probably bargained on with some of that.
Oh yeah.
No, that's amazing. So as the 90s are progressing, then and USA is working eventually towards the part where SRO Pace buys them out. Is that something you guys saw on the radar coming? Was the ownership group kind of losing interest or just looking to sell while things were still profitable? Or did it kind of catch all of y'all off guard when those times came around?
SRO had already bought TNT.
Yep.
And we kind of felt like what was coming. We just didn't know when, where, and what. It got let out that Russ was at a particular place with SRO. I think it's down in Houston. I don't remember. Somebody seen somebody that seen somebody. And the word got back to me, and I said something about it. And head office called me and wanted to know where I found out what I had just said, which was USA was being bought out. And I tried to tight-lip it, but I got threatened with my life to let them know who. And I mentioned some names, and it caused the grief, but everybody knew it was coming. But the way it come down in Minneapolis, the last show, you walk into show production, and they just throw it in your face. This is it. We've been bought out. Do your show tonight. See you later. Bye-bye. That hurt a lot of people.
I
bet it did.
So, I mean, help me understand in a little more detail kind of how that went down. I mean, is it just the pre-show meeting and ownership comes down and just says
there was a lot of rumors because of I helped leak some of the rumors. There was other people that leaked the rumors. Monster Truck World leaked some rumors. We just didn't know how, who, when, or what. We just kind of felt like it was going to happen. And at a pre-show driver's meeting, if you want to call it that, a pre-show production meeting, that said right then and there, we was bought out. You'll be working for somebody else. They'll contact you. See you later. Wow. I worked for SRO a couple of months. It was just really, it wasn't my style. I didn't like the quad wars and the fighting and the and the WWF. That wasn't my style of announcing. I didn't fit their style. Their style didn't fit me. It wasn't no meeting like, we just can't use you no more. They just quit calling and I quit asking. Just simple as that.
Did you ever have contact with Russ Klein or any of those guys in ownership after that, or was that it, period?
None whatsoever.
Wow.
They rode off in the dust, and I went one way, and they went the other way.
Maybe that explains the lack of returned emails I've gotten from Russ Klein. He didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, that was. There's some really hard feelings on how that come down.
I can believe that. obviously things soured between the Bigfoot organization and SRO that same year, 98.
Uh,
And of course that changed the entire trajectory of the whole industry, but certainly those two organizations. But it changed your trajectory as well too. So,
yeah,
how did gainful employment still keep coming your way after the USA thing ended, and it was pretty clear that US Hot Rod wasn't going to be your thing?
it was. I remember sitting in Toronto before Minneapolis. Minneapolis was the closing show, and I kind of knew what was coming. And at Toronto, the there's a Hard Rock Cafe
Mm-hmm.
connected to the floor and the venue. I mean, everything's the motel, everything's just right there. And I remember going down to the cafe, Hard Rock, and I remember there was a golden microphone for somebody. I don't even know who it belonged to. And I remember sitting there looking at that microphone thinking, my day's coming to an end. My run, and motorsports don't owe me nothing. I owe everything to motorsports. And I remember sitting there quite a long time in that cafe thinking about what was going to be next. And I had just pretty well come to the corner. Dude, there ain't no more next. I'd had a good run. Enjoy what you've done. Go do your thing. Go back to life as normal. And that's what I've done. And then the week or two later, we done Minneapolis. That's when we got the final word. And so I just come back, and tractor pulling wasn't really on my venue, but I got asked to go do a show in Missouri, and the right people was there and heard me. I mean, I just been in the right place at the right time and said the right things, or didn't wipe my nose when I shouldn't have. But anyhow, the president of the Outlaws come to me and kind of asked me what my lifestyle was, what was going on, and I told him, well, I'm just here. I'm back to freelancing. And within 2 years' time, I was 100% outlaw, and they just tell me where to go and do my thing.
That's awesome. And so you've continued to parlay all of that now into, still a very successful truck and tractor pull announcing career, to the point that you're one of the voices of the National Farm Machinery Show pulls in
Number
Louisville.
9.
Yeah, tell
I'm
us a
number
little bit
9.
about that. Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, I had tried to get into Louisville. I called them the Betsy. I don't know what Betsy's last name was. I didn't know Mike Witt at the time. I knew who he was,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't familiar with it. Now I knew, uh, here I go with my memory. I can't never remember. TNT guy.
Butch Krieger?
No. The guy, one of the main guy that owned TNT.
Was that Billy Joe Miles, maybe?
Billy Joe Miles.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Got it.
Yeah.
I knew Billy Joe because I'd done TNT stuff, and I talked to him, and he said, "You got to go through the fair board. You got to go through the channels." I filled out a resume, made up my resume. I had a program from the Outlaws that had my whole bio, picture, biography, the whole 9 yards in it. Even had the story from Full Pull, the magazine that Woody Hatton had.
Mm.
And he had done a 3-page article on me. I sent that along. I sent resumes. Dennis Goodwin, the vice president of the Outlaws, who had won Louisville. Doug Roberts, who had won Louisville, the president of the Outlaws. I sent it all to them. And in that letter, I said, I'm not asking for the job, but I'm going to be at Louisville anyhow. If if somebody comes down horse, falls, breaks a leg, whatever, I'm going to be there. And I sent it all to them. A month later, they sent it straight 100%, every bit of it. Sent it right back to me with a letter, thank you, but we've got contingency plans in place. So I just wrote it off. And just working outlaw stuff. And at the end of the outlaw season, we always closed up in Dale Rapids, South Dakota, and Spencer, Iowa. Spencer, Iowa was one night. Dale Rapids was the next night. And I show up in Spencer, which turns out to be a rainout. And I find out that Mike Witt and his running buddy that's the close to him, I'll think of his name about 2 o'clock tonight.
Gail Mefford.
We're there. Huh?
Was that Gail Mefford?
Gail. Yes. They was at Spencer, Iowa. And I'm thinking, holy smoke. They're out here just looking to see what kind of rides they can bring from this part of the world back to Louisville. Okay.
Louisville's invite only, is that right?
Yes.
Got it.
You have to apply. You have to fill out paperwork and apply. You don't get in if you don't fill out the paperwork and apply. Now, you might get asked to apply, but you don't have a free ticket into Louisville. So Spencer got rained out. We're going to go down the road to Dale Rapids. And one of the, Dave Nelson, who still is one of the tech guys at Louisville, who was a tech guy for Outlaws back in those days, asked me if I would ride with him. And then come to find out, we went to a place, we stopped to eat, and there's Mike Witt and Gail. And that's when I found out that Mike Witt used to drive Stomper Bully. I did not know nothing about that until that comment. He knew all about me, monster truck world, but I didn't know him from outside of walking around the arena in red coveralls.
This one's just for all the goobers out there like Mike and I. Not only did Mike Witt drive the Stomper Chevrolet, Mike Witt rolled the Stomper Chevrolet. And a little bit of an inside joke for us there.
The Stomper 1 machine.
Yeah, the Stomper 1 machine. That's right. Anyway, sorry.
So I caught up on that, and we're eating dinner, and I'm asking, man, y'all a long ways from home. Yeah, we're just looking at competition, this and that and other. And so we go to Dale Rapids, and I see Witt down at the end of the arena talking to Doug Roberts, who's doing the official end flag, and they're down there just leaning up against the fence talking. I'm just rattling, doing my thing. And I spot Dave Nelson walking down the track. We're in between classes or whatever. And he's got him an ice cream cone. Well, I had, coming from the SRO days, I still had the radio with the earpiece, the television earpiece and everything. I got the radio frequencies from all the associations. So if I was doing a USA Outlaw show, I could be on their frequency. And so I'm using that radio to keep up with who's coming next or who broke or what broke. I'm kind of up in a crow's nest in a rodeo arena. But Dave Nelson's walking down the track with an ice cream cone, licking on it very methodically. I just got on the radio, didn't get on the mic. And I asked him if them dadgum ice cream cones come one to a package, and he just kind of snickered. We went on, and in between tractors, in between classes, I don't know, he comes back down the track, and he says, "Hey, Bennett, you still worried about my ice cream cone?" And I made some smart aleck remark. He said, "Look behind you," and there's Mike Witt handing me an ice cream cone. He was listening to the radio chatter. He wanted to know how we was making those radios work. And that comes into play going back to Louisville. Anyhow, that went by the wayside. I don't think nothing about it. I went out. I drove. My daughter lives in D.C., right outside of D.C., Centerville, Virginia, right outside of D.C. Me and Linda had went out there for Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that, one of the holidays. And we're driving back, just coming through the hills of Tennessee. The phone rings. And it is Mr. Workman, the president of the Kentucky Fair Board, and he wants to talk to me about doing Louisville. Caught me. I'm driving down the road. I had no idea this was coming. And I pull over to the side of the road, and we talk and visit. And Witt had come out there not only to look at machines, but to critique me. And that's how Louisville started, and that's how the radio come into play as to who does what at Louisville and such as that, because I was wired in. And I got on with Y-Song. What I knew what commercials was coming through the big screen. That was pretty good days too, but that's how Louisville come about. But I was number 9.
I feel like that's a lot of pressure, right? So, I mean, when you take the mic in anger for the first time at Louisville, I mean, you've announced some pretty big gigs prior to that, but I imagine that one probably was pretty special to you.
It was special. I'll tell you, to be real honest with the everybody, once you do Louisville, and I'll get back to the beginning. I mean, Butch Krieger he was a godsend. He was nice. He was easy. He led me through how certain things was done at Louisville. Me and Butch got along so nice, so nice. But once you do Louisville, you realize you're not talking to the county fair people that sees a pool once a year. Everybody sitting in them stands is probably a puller or seen more pulls than you. They're smart as you. You don't blow smoke at Louisville. You better have the names right. You got to be on your A game. That is by far the toughest show to do of any shows I've ever done anywhere.
I don't underrate that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt. Matt, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know of Louisville, but I don't know all the ins and outs like you do, obviously. That's real interesting to hear that all the people there in the stands, there's no casual fans that go to Louisville. I didn't realize that.
No,
yeah,
right.
I didn't realize that. As an announcer, that's got to be, boy, you better have your A+ game going there.
That'd be like taking an announcer from the Friday night stock car race and having him go do Daytona.
Right, right.
So I got acclimated to that very quickly. Very, very quickly. One of the funniest things that ever happened in my announcing career happened at Louisville. I mean, a highlight of my career happened in Louisville was, they always break down or have the smoke tube would go down and they'd melt it in two. Well, we melted the smoke tube in two. I mean, melted it down. And it was going to take 30 minutes of kill time. And that was my job. That's what I was there for, was to handle the kill time. Butch, one of the greatest announcers there ever was, but he didn't work the crowd like I worked the crowd. He wasn't into the kill time like I was into the kill time. And so I was under the spotlight. So I'm dancing around. I'm trying to make a fool out of myself and just digging for anything and everything I can to kill time while they put that tube together, because I don't believe in turning music on and letting people twiddle their thumbs for 30 minutes if you know you're coming back.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've done this and I've done that, and I'm going down through there, and I spot this old boy sitting on the front row right there by the concrete barrier. Got a NASCAR jacket on that looks like he changed oil in it 15 times. Had a scraggly beard, had tobacco running out of the corner of his mouth. And I look at him in the eye. I always prided myself of being able to kind of spot the person you could have fun with or the person you better leave alone. And I thought, okay, this guy worked. And so I've got Wysong's son carrying a handheld camera sticking right over my shoulder. And I walk up to this old boy, you having a good time tonight? Yep. I said, you a NASCAR fan? Yep. And I just seen a little twinge in his eye, and I'm thinking, I need to get out of here. But you just don't walk off and leave them stone cold. You got to pick your way in, pick your way out. And I said, well, that's pretty neat. Where do you come from? And I put the microphone up to his face, and I said, where do you come from? And on it ain't national TV, but the live stream, big screen, Louisville sold out. He looked up and he said, my mama.
Well, finally, somebody else on the mic with you got themselves in trouble instead of getting you in trouble.
Oh, that was an hilarious moment. Hilarious. Butch come around from the podium. I'm halfway down the track from him. What'd he say?
He wasn't lying.
I'll see somebody when I'm doing Louisville. To this day, somebody will walk up to me and say, my mama.
That's outstanding.
You remember those times.
So while we're jumping around here a little bit as we come to the end of your announcing story, of course, we talked about it before we got on the air, so to speak, but we have our, a stack of our Coors hats here. Yeah. So this is where you and I got to talk Coors for a second. So, of course, everybody that follows our show knows, I work for Wyoming's largest Coors wholesaler and, been a Coors fan for a long time. I got my extra gold Motor Spectacular poster hanging over the shoulder here and everything. Um, Growing up in Kansas City, of course, going to primarily USA events, was exposed to the Coors brand very early on. I'm not saying that contributed anything to me having a taste for Coors at any point in my life.
Yeah.
But or the
There's
fact
some
that
fire marshals that loves the thunder out of it, I'll tell you that. But go ahead.
yeah, that's right. And I, of course, selling Coors for almost a decade now. But in any event, we did this line of OSMT merchandise for our store, paying homage to the USA Motorsports, Coors Motor Spectacular. But you're both because of trademark stuff, of course. I can't use Coors on my merch, but also your pronouncing of the word Coors, your enunciation. And so, tell us a little bit about, because you told me the story on the phone. I already know the
Right.
story, of course, but, share with us the story kind of Coors being introduced to USA while you were an announcer there. And somebody might have had a little bit of something to say about how you were pronouncing that.
I wished I could remember exactly who it was. I don't know if it was a monster truck driver or a spectator, who, whatever. But yeah, not only did we have extra gold, one year we had Coors Light, and then we got with the Coors extra gold stuff. But I've always called it Coors, just my bro way of saying it, the way it comes out, what it sounds like. And we was at a show, and I forget who it was. I cannot. Might have been a spectator, might have been part of the acts or whoever. And they said, you're saying that wrong. And I said, really? He said, yeah, you don't say doors, you say door. Door, door. So that's Coors. You say Coors or something along that line.
Yeah.
And the way he come about saying that, I looked him right square in the face. Whoever it was, I don't know. I looked him right square in the face and I said, buddy, I get paid more saying it my way than you do saying it your way.
Touche.
Mic drop. That's
Yep.
fantastic.
Can drop. Ding.
Yeah, can drop.
Oh, that's awesome.
And nobody ever, I don't know if I could say it properly and, enunciate it the way it's legally supposed to be said, I guess. I don't know. But
Well, we're pretty
we had
big
a good
fans of
run
how
with
you
it.
say it. Yeah, we like how
Yeah,
you say it.
We're good with Coors.
Yep, we like Coors. We got an upstate New Yorker over here pronouncing it the Oklahoma way. I'd say you've got some reach.
Hold on, let me go shut the front door.
Yeah, shut the front door. Yeah.
But
Oh man, that's great. I just about fell on the floor laughing there, but oh man, don't somewhere my 12-year-old daughter's rolling her eyes because she hears her dad making dad jokes. I guarantee it. But so did you ever get to interact with any of the Coors folks, corporate at all or anything like that, or any cool observations? I'm a beer history nerd, just like I am a truck history nerd, so I have to ask.
just a little bit. You remember Pastorini? Dan Pastorini used to drive the Coors Light rail,
Mm-hmm.
and we was doing Texas Stadium at the same time they was doing Enos Speedway.
Yep.
And so all the brass and Pastorini and all those people come over to our Friday night show. Might have been Saturday night. Anyhow, they come over to our show. And then the next day we was all invited to go to their big pit area in Enos Speedway. That's as close to any brass I ever got to interact with anybody. Was that
They ever have a local wholesaler drop off some free beer for you guys at least for the weekend?
Every show you was promised so many cases, and not going into what buildings. That's what I said a while ago. There's some fire marshals that like their car trunk filled up with cases of Coors as they was inspecting your show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you weren't going to do the show. You wouldn't do the show otherwise.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So yeah, we got, I don't know how many cases, but every show we was provided so many cases of the extra gold or light or whichever show we had going.
That's pretty fruitful, that's a pretty fruitful outcome of the sponsorship agreement that USA landed, that some of that even trickles down to that's just a morale boost, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, well, I suppose there's a practical sense to making sure the fire marshal stays properly hydrated, but I think and then also having the Coors sponsored vehicles at the shows,
Yes.
starting with the Coors Bruiser and the extra gold Top Dog, and then Dan Sampson has the extra gold Samson and things like that. And then
Right.
later Keystone beer in the early 90s, all still Coors brands. But uh, I've never, and Matt, you're probably with me on this, I've never announced a show with a jet powered monster truck at it. What
I
is
drove
that?
that truck.
You drove that truck. All right, now we got to hear it. Tell us.
Right on.
I was doing Kansas State Fair,
Mm.
and the truck was up there, and so I drove it out on the track, presenting the American flag, announcing it. And you got to help me with his name. I can't.
Well,
Like
Scott
I told
Stevens helped build it, I think.
Scott Stevens. There you go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
That part from the wreck. But anyhow, Scott Stevens is over there driving the rear wheels. I'm driving the front wheels, trying to keep up with whatever the hell he was doing with that toggle switch over there, and presenting the American flag at the Kansas State Fair. But I drove that truck.
How the hell did you drive it? Was there a hand throttle for that unit, or did you just step on the gas and it spun the turbine up, or what the heck did you do?
It was a hand throttle,
Okay.
but the front steering wheel wouldn't go very. I could handle the microphone, and I got it done. Here again, he was helping with the rear wheels.
Yeah.
But the first time he cranked them wheels, I wasn't ready, not knowing what was going on. We cut us a donut right out there at the starting line, and then we got it straightened out. And then I drove it down and parked it in the middle track. It looked like I intended to. Hell, I was just trying to catch up with what was going on.
So I have to ask, did anybody ever take you for a ride over crush cars in any monster trucks? Have you ever been over cars? No.
No, never was allowed to do that. Now that's one thing USA utilized my ability to do stupid stuff. The tough trucks. I come out of the announcer stand. I cannot remember names anyhow. Gal out of California had a tough truck, pretty good runner. And of course, I always told the crowd I was the president of the Male Chauvinist Club, and I'd pick fun at her. And we set up, yeah, that was me. And so we set up a skit at one of the shows, an outdoor show, to where I'd be popping off and she would challenge me to beat her time. And I come out of the announcer stand, went down, put on a hard hat, got in her truck, jumped the cars, jumped the dirt deal, had a hellacious run going, but I lost it on the last curve and she beat me. But I have driven a mud racer with nitrous. I went through the mud pit down in Florida, 100-foot pit in 2 point some odd seconds with that nitrous. I've driven that at a show. I've driven a demolition derby at a show. I've driven a tough truck at a show. USA would let me play a little bit. They would come up with the skits. They had to okay everything. And the one thing that I wanted to do, and they would not allow it, but right at the beginning of the show, the cars are not smashed down. You're out there talking what's coming. And I walk past the car and I'd say, oh man, there's a $10 bill in there. And I'd climb through the window and I'd get in the back seat and I wanted to lay down flat. And then here come the monster truck through, I'd be introducing the monster truck. And you'd understand, and he'd hit the cars and fly over the cars. And then I'd come crawling out of the car like, what the hell just happened? They would not allow that to happen. I wasn't worried about it because that was in the day of flying trucks, not crushing trucks.
Oh, yeah.
But they wouldn't hear of it.
I don't know if I'd have the balls for that one.
I'd have done it in a heartbeat.
What about you, Matt? Can I sucker you into a crush car the next time we do a show together?
I would have to pre-approve the driver and the truck well in advance because there's not a long list of machines and drivers that I would trust to do that.
No, and that crush car would have to have one of those patented asshole Matt Looker ramps that we know the truck's not even touching the car.
You're 100 foot out from the car when you jump it. Yeah, exactly.
I'd seen so many monster trucks hit the cars. I wasn't worried about it. Wasn't worried about it one little bit.
You get a Get a fresh car and a good driver that knows what he's doing, and
Yeah.
you'd be all right. Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as you didn't have to change your Wranglers after that, if things went slightly awry, you'd be all right. But
Well, you remember when USA had the Dash for Cash? Had
like,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh-huh.
I dashed for cash. I had a pair of cutoffs, and Woody announced, and I stripped down and run through the mud pit, dash for cash.
I'll be damned.
I was the announcer that would just jump in there head first.
That's outstanding. So I got to ask, because Matt and I brought this up in a past episode. We talked about some of the best races we've ever announced ourselves. Does anything stand out to you from your past announcing, whether it was a race or a timed run, just anything somebody did in a monster truck where at the end of it you were almost stuck looking for words, just like, God dang, that was really good.
That would be a really hard. That would be a really, really, really hard question because
Clap on.
the the fact of at number one, that's been so long ago. Picking out one would be pretty hard to do. It'd have to be at a major stadium where they had room to run. But even
Did you?
what we were doing back in '91 won't even hold a light to what they're doing nowadays.
Right.
So,
But I also think a lot of that old stuff's pretty impressive because of how poorly the trucks handled and how bad they landed. Even the advanced
oh,
trucks in 1991 were, they're landing like slugs compared to stuff
yeah,
now. Did you call the race at the Sky Dome where Bigfoot and Carolina Crusher rolled over at the same time? Do you recall?
I
That
don't
would
recall it.
No, that would have
I
been
don't
90.
recall it.
Okay.
I probably was there. I done the
That's all right.
Sky Dome. I rode in a Bigfoot hot air balloon inside the Sky Dome.
No
You
kidding.
you rode in a hot air balloon inside the dome.
Inside the dome. Somebody
Jeez.
had made a hot air balloon that like Bigfoot. I mean, had it painted up. It was shaped like a monster truck,
Holy cow.
and we could get off the ground like 20 some feet, maybe something like that. And I done that inside the Sky Dome. Sky Dome was a pretty neat place. You had room to work there. You could put on a 3-ring circus in that building. But
That's funny you say 3-ring circus. You're so right because USA shows had so much variety back then. I mean,
oh
I
yeah,
remember going to shows as a kid at Arrowhead in Kansas City, and you've got Spanky Spangler falling off a crane on fire onto a inflatable bag, and you've got a semi truck tractor trailer demolition derby, and you got
yeah.
yeah, you got the dynamite lady, you got some pulling, the monster trucks. I mean, it's funny because if I look back at some of my old photos or other photos people have given me, and you notice on the scoreboard that it's like 11:25 at night and the monster trucks are still racing. And you
Yeah.
just don't see that now. People don't have the attention span for that. The shows start at 7 and they're done by 8:30. I mean, that's a whole different time back then. I remember coming home from Arrowhead just gassed, because
Yeah.
we'd been there for 6 or 7 hours. I can't imagine as an announcer trying to keep, maybe that's why you guys had two announcers so often with USA was to just get through those long nights, huh?
All nights. They was pretty because when something broke down, that pretty well bottlenecked everything.
Yeah.
And then you had to set up for like the dynamite lady. You had to set up for it. There couldn't be nothing else going on. The production staff learned over the time how to schedule that stuff down to keep it intact. And I remember the first SRO show I done. We was running on time. You had a script, and at 8:03 you're supposed to be doing this, and at 8:33 you're supposed to be doing this. And monster trucks was breaking left and right. I wasn't used to that. I was used to flowing. And the show producer there, we got down. We only had 2 trucks left, and it was supposed to be. We were supposed to have freestyle, and he didn't have enough to freestyle because we just had a couple of dogs left. And I remember I told him, I said, just get them both out here and let them both run around. They can't hurt each other because they both can't run fast enough to hurt each other. Just let them get out here and freestyle 2 at the same time. And then I'll get you back on there. He was fixing to run over schedule. That's what it was. They only had 2 trucks left, and they was dogs. And he was fixing to run over time, and he was going to get a call from Chicago for running over time. I told him, bring them out both out at the same time. He said, I can do that. I said, you're the show producer, ain't you? And we did, right. And both right on schedule.
There you go.
But
and as we have seen at other shows, they can run into each other. Thankfully, they didn't for you guys that night. But, I'm talking Avenger and Black Widow at the Silverdome, Matt. That was it didn't quite go right. But if there's any form of motorsport that will teach you to kill downtime beyond a stock car race where it's pouring down rain, it would be a monster truck show, because I tell you what, shit will break, and it doesn't matter if it's a monster truck's tie rod or your freestyle motocross guy's shin, something will break. Matt and I's first show we did together, one of our motorcycle riders snapped his leg, and I think I had to kill time for about 35, 40 minutes on the mic. And I mean, that in rural Canada, that gets pretty difficult.
And then for the next show, the next day, we were down to 3 trucks. We had to I had to redo the whole format, add a whole nother competition for the monster trucks to do, so that we'd fill the whole show, so that the fair board that booked the show didn't think they were getting gypped in time. So monster trucks teach you to improvise on the fly real quick if you want to keep people coming back.
And then you talk about accidents and stuff breaking. You know, I've been involved in 2 different shows where there's a death. Monster Trucks is in one of them. Monster Patrol, Chris Mintz over here in Claremore, Oklahoma. But you brought up a memory, like motorcycle breaking a leg or something like that. We had a thrill. We was doing a show in Lethbridge, Canada, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we was on a tour all the way across Canada. I mean, you left Vancouver and worked your way all the way across all the provinces. And we had this motorcycle, and I don't even know who he was. I couldn't remember his name if I had to. But he would tape a whole bunch of cardboard boxes together in a great big old square of cardboard boxes. And he'd put it on the backside of one of the old crush cars. And he would come through. He's going to crash into the crush cars. He was going to be a monster truck on a 2-wheeler. And what he would do, and I had him 3 or 4 times, but, you know, he'd do the Evel Knievel, Robbie Knievel pass or 2 where you make a run at it and dive off and this and that and other. But on his final pass, just before he hit the cars, he'd jump up and put his feet up on the seat, and he would pole vault him in those boxes. We're in Lethbridge, Canada, doing that. He comes through the door on his final pass, jumps up on the seat, and his feet slips off. He freezes on the handlebars, and he does a wash rag flop right over on the hood of the car. We didn't have a specialty act for the rest of the tour.
Yeah.
He broke a bone or 2.
I would say so.
I think that was Todd Seeley, if I'm not mistaken.
It could be. I couldn't no more remember that.
That's tough. I mean, Looker, you know that's tough because, I mean, in your case, Dave, you were announcing in a bit different era, but I mean, Matt and I are monster truck guys, right? Like our shows that we would announce now are monster truck shows. And this other stuff is just basically buying us time to fill the show, cool the trucks off. And you're just cussing yourself. God damn it. Like, I don't even like motorcycles. And now I have to buy time for the wounded motorcycle guy. And we can't move the ramp because the ambulance has to extricate this guy.
In there. I mean, the whole 9 yards. You got to sit there. That was interesting.
No
we,
doubt.
One show I did for Monster Jam at the Metrodome, Minneapolis. Like, freestyle motocross has been a part of Monster Jam for a long time. It's a good staple. It's not really my thing, but fans like it, so it gets booked, right? They decided we're going to do freestyle motocross at the very beginning of the show. Normally it's in the second half. So we bring the monster trucks in, intros. While the lights are still off, trucks are parked on the track, we're going to do the FMX program.
Okay. Right.
One of the guys biffs the landing in like the beginning of the FMX. This is like You got the beginning of the show. Every monster truck is out on the track. All the drivers are out in their trucks. All the fans are there. No one's left. It's not halftime. And you got the one thing you don't want to happens literally with a spotlight on him. Nothing else got light on the track. It's like, come on. Why did this have to happen right now?
Oh man, yeah. Then you got to kill time.
Oh,
Yep, sure do.
Big time. Well, Dave, I have to ask as we're moving along here, because we always like to understand, folks' personal journeys through the industry and just through life. Matt and I are both dads, and I know you just mentioned that you have at least one daughter that lives up there by DC, but and I certainly don't mean to touch on anything that's a difficult subject, but tell us about raising a family. I know you were married for a real long time before the accident. If you're okay with touching on that just a little bit and educating us all a little bit, but definitely tell us about raising some kids while you're out traveling a lot too, because I always find it interesting how different fathers especially have handled those things over the years.
The school activities 99% of the time was through the week. Basketball games, such as that. In high school, you'd have and my boy did not play sports. My boy was into ag. So he was at stock shows and stuff like that. And fall time stock shows was no big deal. I was home nearly all the time. Basketball games, I missed very few, especially when USA would fly me out on a red eye on a Saturday morning to go do a major somewhere. It could be worked out. The interesting part, raising the family, and Linda would go with me to a lot of the shows, but because of the school, she wasn't, and I'd get on an airplane, I'd fly out on a Friday morning or a Saturday morning and get back in Sunday night and go to work Monday morning. So you had to divide your times up. But I'll tell you funny about the kids and their star dad doing shows. When we went over in '89 to Australia, I had enough frequent flyer miles built up at the time that I flew my wife and both kids to Australia free of charge.
Oh yeah,
that's
upgrade class. Yeah, no problem, free of charge, upgrade class, whole 9 yards. And at that time, at those shows, Ashley had the house announcer introduce me, and I'd come walking out under spotlights.
Wow.
In the black cowboy hat and all that, and I'd do my thing. And I thought, how cool is this going to be that my kids get to see their dad walk out under spotlight in the tennis center, Melbourne Tennis Center, full of people. How cool is that going to be? Shavonna was out in the hallway talking to some guy, and Brian was reading a book. Did not impress them one little bit.
I can see that happen.
Much motorsport stuff.
No, that's Matt, I don't know about you. I could totally see my kids doing that. Like somebody'd be dumb enough to stick me back in a Bigfoot truck for one more time, and one would be at the concession stand and the other be at the merch stand, and they'd miss it all.
Yeah.
Right. Or I say a joke on the mic and my daughter goes, "Wow, Dad, that was a great joke."
Yeah. She's just up there giving you a thumbs down from the seat.
Just like hand in her head, like, come on.
Yeah. How did the mother-in-law jokes go over with your mother-in-law?
She knew I told mother-in-law jokes. She just didn't know what size of jokes I told.
You got to give us one of those for old time's sake, if that's okay. If I can poke you with a stick and ask you to do a trick, can you give us a mother-in-law joke?
Well, it's pretty obvious that I kind of give you a whole string right here, right quick.
All right.
I took her to a tractor pull one time. The sled broke down. We put a set of roller skates on her, and a four-wheel drive pickup could only move her 5 feet. Not saying that my mother-in-law is big and fat, but her exact measurements is 36, 24, 36. And her other leg looks exactly like that one. But I do got to give her a break though. She did lose 15 pounds in 5 minutes one time. She shaved her legs.
Oh man,
Oh,
dang! These are solid. These are
fantastic.
worse. These are tougher than
Fantastic.
these are tougher than the Yo Mama jokes from the early '90s. Like those are fighting
Yeah.
words right there. If somebody loves their mother-in-law, oh man. Oh, dang. So, as the 90s progressed, then, your kids are getting a little bit older, and I don't know, their exact ages or maybe when, they moved on from high school or things like that. But, tell us a little bit about, what happened with, so we understand a little bit better what happened with yourself and your wife, not too terribly long ago with the accident. And at any point, if you don't, want to touch on something, that's perfectly okay. We want to honor what you and your wife have both been through, I
I
think.
appreciate that, and I have said it many a time. I am at ease with what happened at the wreck because very few people know Linda Sue was headed towards an issue like Alzheimer's or such as that, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. We was in the middle of a test, and before we went on a motorcycle ride with the sled operator, Kevin and Lori Bauer, every summer we'd go somewhere. I've rode the Tail of the Dragon. I've been in the Rockies twice. We've rode Yellowstone. I've rode all around Great Lakes. We've rode everywhere. Arkansas, Hill Country in Texas. But just before we left to go on this last trip, her doctor had called her and told her when she got back on Tuesday, he had an appointment on Thursday, and she was to bring her immediate family. She never told me that until I come to and all this. I mean, I was out for a while, but we left out. We went and done the show in Whitewright, Texas. The sled operator brought his sled by here. We plugged it in the whole 9 yards. We got on the bikes and went down and went across Skyline Drive and over into Arkansas, and we drove all over Arkansas, and we was on our way home. And this is honest God's truth. I do not remember the wreck. I don't have a clue what happened. Not no inkling, none whatsoever. Uh, Linda lost her life at the scene. We went off it was a hairpin curve, and I was on an inside turn. It wasn't like I was on the outside, and it was a 50-mile-an-hour curve. It wasn't a 20-mile-an-hour curve. It was a 50-mile-an-hour curve. And I'm on a trike. When a trike drives different than a bike does. But for whatever happened, nobody knows. Nobody's seen. Nobody knows nothing. If there was anybody, if somebody caused it, I don't know. I don't have a clue. Don't have a clue. But I went straight off that curve. No turn, no brakes, no skid marks, no nothing. Went off that curve and went down in the canyon. 17 broken bones later, from my forehead and eye and nose, shoulder blade, hip replacement, pelvic plate, screw through the butt end, plates on my left knee, and I just got through having surgery on my right foot, getting it set back. It was a hellacious wreck. They metaflighted me from Arkansas to OU Medical, not because I was from Oklahoma. That was the closest trauma one center that they could send anybody to. And I was in intensive care and trauma for a full month, and then I was in rehab a month before I come home, before we even could have a funeral for Linda. Mm-hmm. So it was a traumatic time. I'm at ease with it because she's not having to go through where she was headed. She had told one of our best friends about her doctor's appointment that he had said to bring the immediate family. So we had 55 years of a lot of running and gunning. She'd throw a clipboard at. We had a little skit set up at the show. She'd throw a clipboard at because it'd be out where I could get access to the crowd, and the crowd could see her. And my mother-in-law deals. And I'd say, everybody thinks about my wife, and I'm talking about my poor mother-in-law. My mother-in-law's so ugly. My wife is adopted. My wife was literally, actually, true story, was adopted. Oh. And I'd point at her, and I'd say, my wife is adopted, and she'd stand up and throw a clipboard at me, and the crowd would just hoorah.
Oh, man. I think that is so spectacular. I mean, I've been married almost 14 years now, and that feels like a long time to me. But, I mean, 55 years together, I mean, that just what a couple and a combo you guys had to have been, and credit to USA and to you for, making her such a part of what you were doing on the road too. I think that's spectacular.
They made sure she was taken care of while we was over in Australia. They'd call and check on her. You're exactly
That's
right.
great.
No two ways about it.
Wow, that's
That's awesome.
fantastic. Well, I wish I had the words to express, for Matt and I and everybody else watching, how much our heart goes out to you and went out to you at the time. I didn't even know you personally at the time, but this is such a tight knit community, motorsports is, and especially
Oh,
let's
yeah.
call it dirt motorsports, like we're all a part of. Just like, with the losses we had in 2025, like with Dan Runty, we rally around each other, and there's got to be some kind of good energy that comes from people caring so damn much, even if they don't know somebody. So, our hearts were with you then. They are now too. But I got to tell you, my heart's shifted around a little bit. You had us laughing so much tonight with some of those mother-in-law jokes and stuff, man. I mean, you got to give yourself more credit. You are a fantastic storyteller, and Matt, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I mean, I'm staggered at the both the detail and just the positivity you bring to telling these stories from back then.
Yeah, absolutely. Great storyteller. I've never heard you live at a show. Other than Glens Falls, which is only about 40 minutes north of me. I think you might have went there when I was too little to go. But other than that, USA didn't really come near me. When I was a kid.
This cup was printed in 1985.
Yeah, I was born in 86, so yeah, but I would have loved to have hear you as a announcer when I was younger going to a show. I know from what I've seen on TV, just able to work a legendary announcer is
Absolutely
what it is. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to say.
I don't do nothing no more than anybody else can do. I just dumb enough to make a fool of myself and do it.
Well, I tell you what, my friend, you certainly have some fans both in us and in the greater fan base out there. But this is where I'm excited to point out about these hats is so I'm going to send you these Coors Motor Spectacular hats here. One of
How
them
did you say that?
Coors, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I get a pronunciation lesson every day at work. But no, we're going to send these Coors extra gold Motor Spectacular hats your way. I'm going to send them to you, Dave. And I'd be honored if one of them would make it into your collection if you'd so have it. I know you don't collect a whole bunch of stuff from the road, but it'll be a thank you.
I'll put it right up here with this collection that you can't see right up here.
Well, that's outstanding.
Where
And
the
then
coffee cup was.
there'll be a couple more. There's going to be a selfish one for me and Matt. We'd love you to autograph our hats, and I'll pay you to send them back. But we're going to have you autograph one of these, and we're going to find a way to give it away through the Old School Monster Trucks YouTube channel to our viewers on here, if you'll indulge us in that. We thought that'd be pretty cool, and I know you kind of hinted at a similar idea when we talked on the phone. So if you're up for it, buddy, we're going to send.
I have no problem. I have no problem, and I appreciate you sending one because it'll fit pretty good with what little memorabilia I got up here. You know,
Well,
it ain't everybody that has got their own personal bobblehead.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
That's awesome. Love it. Love it.
So it'll go right up there with that.
That looks a little smaller than your mother-in-law.
It's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. But yeah, I'll sign it. And when I had time signing autographs, and I've signed a lot of autographs, I always signed it the announcer, Dave R. Bennett. And that's the way those hats will come back to you. The announcer, Dave R. Bennett.
Well, you are the announcer in our book, certainly in the opinion of these two announcers. You
Yes,
are our
sir.
announcer. So, well, listen, we have ate up a bunch of your time tonight, but I
ain't got nothing but time now, buddy. I've got a crippled foot and it's snow outside. What else am I going to do?
You ain't going shoveling tonight, right? No, I got you on that. I am going to have so much gratuity in my heart getting to edit this episode together. It'll probably come out in March or April because we're in our off season technically right now. But I know you got that cruise coming up. You're looking forward to doing some relaxing in the sun, and
that's February, so I'll be home in March and April.
Okay, good. Well, you'll get to see it when it comes out, and we'll make sure we get you the link and all that. And I'll send these hats to you. You know, you'll have, what day are you leaving in February on the cruise? What is it? The 5th?
February 7th.
7. Okay. So I'll probably
February
I'll hold off sending these till you get back. That way they're not, you know, stuck on the front porch while you're gone or something.
And I'll be back on the 23rd.
Outstanding, man. That's going to be, well, hey,
14 days floating.
you know how to get a hold of me now through Facebook and all that stuff. So, like I said on the phone, if your ass goes overboard, you let me know and we'll mount a recovery mission. We're going to come get your ass because you're national treasure to us, buddy. The Sharks don't deserve a gold microphone like we do, so we're going to come get you.
There you go.
Well, listen, my friend, we are immensely grateful. Thank you for your time tonight, and
thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll leave you to it, but we're going to stay in touch with you. And if you ever get lost and find your way up to Cheyenne, Wyoming, by golly, I got a flat space for you to lay your head in a cooler full of Coors if you need it.
Hey, you never know where I'll pop up. You know, I rented the farm out. I've turned loose of my custom hay business. My whole life is just going to be enjoying life today because you don't know about tomorrow. And until you have an accident like I've had, you don't realize that tomorrow in the morning is not promised. You just got to be yourself right now.